Yo, what's up, everyone? It's Legacy Shinobi here, back with another epic What If. Today we're diving into what if Naruto ate the Uo no Mi model Ryujin. Imagine Naruto with the power of the mythical dragon god, combining his ninja skills with the strength, transformation, and abilities of a deity-level Zoan devil fruit. How would this power reshape the shinobi world, and could anyone stand in his way? You already know this is going to be legendary. Before we get started, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you're new here. Alright, no more delays. Let's get straight into the story.
It has been 6 years since the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Kurama was ripped from Kushina Namikaze, wife of the 4th Hokage Minato Namikaze, and had its power resealed into their newborn children Natsumi and Menma. Both were declared as heroes to the village. Forgotten by his own parents was their younger brother Naruto Namikaze. Natsumi looked exactly like Kushina when she was 6, only her facial structure was the same as Minato's, the complete opposite of Naruto. He looked like a mini Minato with Kushina's face. Menma looked like Minato, but had crimson hair and 3 whisker marks on his face. Both children had 3 whisker marks on each cheek due to Kurama's influence while they were in Kushina's womb. Over the last 3 years, Natsumi's personality has gone from being a kind child to a little bitch. When something didn't go her way, she complained until someone gave her what she wanted. She bullied other children, mostly Naruto though. Overall, she had an attitude that could rival the Uchiha and Hyuga together, yet no one seemed to notice. Similarly, Menma became more cruel and condescending to others, especially Naruto. He befriended 2 heirs named Sasuke Uchiha and Kiba Inuzuka. Together they all beat Naruto to a bloody pulp. Naruto's life has been a living hell, specifically over the last 3 years. He had no friends save a select few individuals. The villagers hated him because someone said he was the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi Soul instead of his siblings, and worst of all, his parents were brushing him aside like he is not worth nothing. Most people in his position would have taken the coward's way out of running away and nurse his hatred for Konoha. Every advance he made to get his parents to train him along with Natsumi and Menma was turned down. Minato and Kushina kept saying they would train him when he entered the academy at age 8, and every time they went back to training their precious children. Yet through all the bad times, Naruto maintained a positive outlook on life. Never once did he complain to his parents about the beatings that he received from the people around him, and he never gave up on things that mattered to him, like trying to be part of his family. Yet despite this happy outside, on the inside Naruto was almost at his breaking point. The day was October 8. Naruto was going to ask his parents again if they could train him or if he could at least join the ninja academy next year. But fate has a strange way of creating its heroes. Ouchin. Did you see that? Natsumi called out as she walked up the tree. Excellent job, Natsumichin, Minato said with a smile. You're as strong as your mother was when she was your age. I'm better though, Menma said as he ran up the tree, grinning all the way. Alright, you 3, lunch is ready, so come and get it. Kushina called as she brought a tray of 4 ramen bowls to her husband and children. Once all 4 had eaten, Minato asked the kids to go inside so he could speak to Kushina in private. Naruto was just about to go outside, but he was stopped when Natsumi came in. Move it, Baka, she ordered as he stepped out of her way. As she continued to her room, Naruto reached for the door but stopped when he heard his father talking. Menma just ignored his presence and went to his room. You know what, Kushina? Minato asked his red-haired wife. In 2 days at their birthday party, I plan on allowing Natsumi and Menma to sign the Toad contract, Minato told her. Kushina looked at him like he was insane. Don't you think that it's a little too soon for them to sign the contract? She said in a concerning voice. Not at all, once they sign it I will begin to teach them the summoning jutsu, Minato said. Why do you want them to learn so much so soon, Minato asked Kushina. I won't have my children go out into the world and get themselves killed because they weren't prepared, said Minato. I see, that's understandable, said Kushina. Also, I'll be making Menma the clan heir for the Namikaze and Natsumi for the Uzumaki. As for Naruto, I want to marry him to 4 noblewomen from the other 4 great nations, said Minato, shocking Kushina and Naruto, who was listening on the other side of the door. But shouldn't Naruto be able to choose what he does in his life? Asked Kushina, still shocked. Naruto perked at this. His mother actually sounded like she cared even for him, even for a little bit. Yes, but this is a once-in-a-century contract that could end the cycle of hatred and create peace between the elemental nations. If the freedom of Naruto is what I have to sacrifice for it, then so be it, said Minato, not realizing how royally he just screwed up. But it's his choice, you moron. You can't just take that from him. Kushina roared, furious that her husband had the audacity to say such a thing. Just who do you think you are? As clan head and Hokage I can. Minato said in a tone that ended their little argument. Now come, let's finish Natsumi's training for today, said Minato, getting a silent nod from the red-headed woman. Hearing this, Naruto ran to his room and locked the door. Then he let his tears fall freely. In one instant he had lost everything that was important to him, and his world came crumbling down. For the rest of his life he would be nothing more than a tool that would someday be forgotten. He just wanted to be free and be loved. That's all he's ever wanted, but it was getting quite clear to Naruto that he wouldn't find it here. Stealing his resolve, he began packing his bag. At night, when the Namikaze family was asleep, Naruto woke up and placed his plan in action. Luckily for him, everywhere he went there were no guards, as if some outside force was willing him to succeed. Naruto snuck into the Hokage library and took all the scrolls on chakra control and elemental manipulation. He then sealed all the scrolls into a small scroll and placed in his backpack. Then Naruto began planted remote paper bombs all over the place and left the building. Reaching the main gate, Naruto could not believe his luck once again. The gate was open just enough for him to slip through, and both guards were sleeping on the job. Once Naruto was outside the gates, he activated the bombs and ran so fast it was like he wasn't even there. Kaboom! The explosion seemed to shake the entire village, waking everyone at once. Shinobi were scrambling to put the fires out as Minato arrived in only his nightwear. Minato was shocked someone had snuck into the village and blew up the Hokage library. The realization hit him like a ton of bricks. All the scrolls concerning the families of Hokage were in there, along with countless other scrolls of great significance. I want that fire put out now, Minato ordered, concerned about his clan's scrolls. Save everything you can. Outside the village, Naruto was ecstatic he had done it, and he was proud of it. What he had done would severely cripple Konoha if their Hokage's clan could not learn their own jutsu. To the sea, the home to the free, thought Naruto as tears of joy endlessly poured down his face. It was a bad day for Minato. Because of the explosion 2 days ago, he was not going to be finishing his paperwork anytime soon, but he really wanted to teach his kids the Rasengan, but that would be tough without their scrolls. His hand stopped writing as a nagging thought came to mind, like he was missing something very important. However, his thoughts were interrupted by someone knocking on his door. "Come in," Minato called. He would worry about the thought at a later time. The door opened and his secretary walked in. "Sorry to bother you, Hokage-sama, but you have a visitor who wished to see you." "Who?" asked Minato, surprised that he would have visitors at this time. "An old woman from a place called Amazon Lily." Minato had heard of the island Amazon Lily from his sensei Jiraiya years ago. Apparently it was a village run by only women who didn't marry, and they usually kill men on sight. "Send her in," the Hokage ordered. The secretary nodded and walked out of the office. A minute later, the door opened again, and in walked an old woman with a snake-wrapped staff. "Well, this is a surprise," Minato greeted the woman. "I welcome you, miss." "My name is Nine Hokage-sama," said the old woman with a bow. "So, why are you here?" asked Minato. "Hokage-sama, the reason too is why I am here is because of your son." "What do you mean?" Minato asked. "A few years ago, Jiraiya of the Sun Inn infiltrated our village. We chased him out after we caught him peeping on the royal bathhouse, but he managed to escape us. Only our current Empress Bo Hancock managed to catch him and return him to the village to be executed. The two fought for 4 days, after which Hancock won, and as the law of the Kuja, she has the right to execute him, but she chose to give her hand in marriage for some weird reason." Nyan explained, with Minato not liking where this was going. "We heard that he had an apprentice, you. Well, Hancock wanted to test you to see if you were worthy of marrying her, but by the time we located you it was too late for you to fight her, since you had already gotten married to Kushina Uzumaki. That is until word reached us that your wife had give birth to triplets 6 years ago. 2 boys and 1 girl. My lady wishes to marry on of your sons." "Nyan-san, I had no idea my sensei had done such a thing," Minato said. "But I will follow this agreement. You don't have a problem with this situation, do you, Nyan-san?" "Naruto, my son will be very strong," Minato told her. Inside, he was sweating his balls off. He hadn't even considered training Naruto for at least another year. "I see, very well, I will inform her of your decision. But do note this, should you not follow the agreement, then we will make sure that Konoha suffers," Nyan said. "Make sure that the boy is strong too, as I will not accept a weak grandson-in-law, and I am sure that the heir to the Kuja has been well trained. You should know that if he fails to defeat the princess, he will die," Nyan warned as she finally left the office. 11 years, that is all I am giving you to prepare your son for the fight, as he is your son. He should be more than ready by now, as I am sure he has begun his training. I'll warn you that Hancock is extremely powerful, so expect her daughter to be like her." Shit was the only thing going through his head. Had he known of this sooner, he wouldn't have denied Naruto's requests for training. Now he 11 years to teach him all he could, that was more than enough time. If he taught him the Kage Bushin no Jutsu first, Naruto could surpass Natsumi and Menma in all fields. It was a good thing he had made a copy of it for his personal library, since the originals burned in the explosion. Later that day, "I'm home," Minato called. Kushina, Menma and Natsumi stopped their Kenjutsu training, basically everything Natsumi knew by memory since the scrolls were now destroyed. The older redhead smiled at her husband, while the little redheads ran over to give their father a hug. Kushina walked over and gave Minato a kiss. "You're early today, Minatokin," Kushina said with a smile. "Well, something came up that requires the utmost attention," the blonde Hokage said. "I see, well, what is it?" his wife asked. "Before I tell you, Menma, why don't you go and get Naruto from his room?" Minato said to his son, whose eyes grew. "Naruto? Why? Menma asked, hiding his rage. Well, I think it's time we start his training alongside yours, his father says with a large smile. Really? Natsumi asked, only to see him nod, but unbeknownst to her parents she was seething at the idea. Menma dashed to the stairs as he headed to his brother's room. Minato watched her run to go get Naruto. He then turned to Kushina, who was looking at him with a confused look in her eyes. They had made the decision to not teach Naruto anything and allow the academy to teach him, as the other two needed the training more so than he because they held the fox's chakra. Now here was Minato saying that they would be training Naruto also. Why the sudden change of heart? Kushina asked suspiciously. Well, Minato began to explain about how the woman from Amazon Lily wants Naruto to fight their princess to see if they should marry because Jiraiya was stupid, which shocked Kushina. Minato then told her about the threats Nyan had made to him if he didn't honor the agreements, even if he didn't promise the Kuja anything. Kushina had been silent, however she knew that since the Hidden Leaf Village was the strongest and had the most clients, then they would suffer a lot. So we have 11 years to train Naruto, then we might as well get started. I'm sure that he will love the idea, Kushina said with a smile. Alright, Sachika is going to start his training. However, they both noticed that Menma had not returned. Minato and Kushina looked at each other before going upstairs to their son's room. Both stopped. Now that they thought about it, they had never been in Naruto's room either. They didn't even remember buying him any decorations. Steadying themselves, they pushed the door, but it was locked. Terrified maternal instincts delivered a powerful kick to the door, throwing it off its hinges. No words were exchanged as they finally saw the inside of the room of their son. To them the room was the definition of plain, there was nothing on the walls, the floor was bare, and no clothes were anywhere to be seen. Minato walked around the room and was scared. Where was Naruto? No, more like was the attack a distraction to kidnap Naruto? He saw an envelope out of the corner of his eye. He grabbed it and tore it open to read it. To whom it may concern. If you're reading this, then congratulations, you have just remembered you had another son. Seeing as though my freedom and life was taken from me. I heard every word you said, Minato. I have decided to leave this village. I am sick of this village, its people, the beatings from the villagers. But most of all, I am sick of my family. I hope to never see any of you again, and if I do, I'll spill your guts on sight and run your corpse up a pole for the world to see. To the Namikaze family, don't bother coming after me. I am way ahead of you, probably by a good week or month at the rate you actually come to my room, and if you do get me, I will try again even harder than before. I hope you all burn in hell. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze is dead to the world. With every word he read, his eyes became wider, tears began to form, and he was also gaining a great amount of guilt because his son had heard what he had said and for not noticing that his son had been kidnapped. Well, that's what he thought anyway. Itao-san, where's Naruto-kun? Asked Natsumi, who just came into the doorway. Gotta give props to Konoha's #1 actress since she was faking concern about her brother on the outside, but in the inside she was jumping around like she won the lottery. As Kushina finished reading the letter, her hand covered her mouth as a waterfall of tears were rolling down her face. This isn't good, Kushina, Minato said. He must have been forced to write this and was kidnapped by whoever blew up the library. Obviously he was ignoring the fact that it was their fault that Naruto was gone. Kushina looked like she had her heart ripped out of her chest. At the same time she wondered how the hell they had not noticed his absence after an attack of such magnitude. First thing she did was make sure Natsumi was okay. She never checked to see if Naruto was okay. She couldn't call herself a good mother, hell she couldn't even call herself a mother. She thought that she was the best mom ever, but now reading the note she began to speculate that what was written was all indeed true. She could not name one thing about Naruto, not one. Well, with Natsumi she could write a book. Maybe he liked ramen, maybe, and even if he did she could not name the flavor. Minato saw her cry, and the only thing he could do now was try and rescue his son from the terrorists, or the Leaf and his family would suffer dearly because of their negligence. So are we going to have my party already or not? Menma casually asked. Party? Your younger brother is missing, most likely being held hostage, and all you can think about is your party, Minato roared, scarring the boy. Never before had he gotten this mad at him, hell he had never gotten mad at him. Go to your room, young man. We will discuss your priorities later. Kushina said in her commanding mother tone that she had only used on Naruto when he had asked for training. Thinking about that made her break down into more tears. All he had wanted was training and time with his family, and what did they do? Brush him away like an annoying fly on the wall. Just then they heard Jiraiya call for Minato. What is it, Jiraiya-sensei? We are in the middle of something very important. Well, that can wait because the Great Toad told me that his initial prophecy has changed. What? Minato screamed. The prophecy relating to their daughter has changed. What does that mean? What do you mean it changed? The prophecy no longer says that the child will be the child of two great shinobi. Instead it says he bears a title of freedom, and upon his back the colors of a king surround his image, and will be the one who brings the dawn upon the world. Minato was stunned. The child of the prophecy that would end the cycle of hatred wasn't going to be Itsumi or Menma, was never the chosen child. Now what were you going to say before, Minato? Naruto was kidnapped during the attack last night. I need you to organize search parties to search for him and kill his kidnapper and give them this order. Don't come back until you find him. He ordered. Right away Hokage-sama Jiraiya said this is quite the coincidence Naruto is kidnapped and at the same time the prophecy changes. I have a bad feeling about this. Oh and Jiraiya see me later so we can discuss why I was not told about the Kuja. Minato said as Jiraiya shoo-shined away. Naruto had been on the run for a whole week. He avoided entering any form of civilization without some kind of disguise in fear that people would recognize him. Roughing it for a week seemed to do wonders for him. He had run out of food and water roughly a day ago, had not slept in 3 days because he didn't want to get caught. So Naruto continued his journey for another day before exhaustion got the better of him. I really need food and some sleep. Naruto said as he continued walking before spotting a strange fruit. About 10 miles away. Naruto was here Kakashi. Pakin said as Kakashi and his team of Anbu arrived. Thanks Pakin, can you find anything else? Kakashi asked worried. Kakashi was never one of the people who hated Naruto at all, he had simply forgotten that he was there most of the time. Kakashi dreamed of the day when Minato would let him train all his children. He already put in the request to have all on his team when they became genin. Minato had told Kakashi about how important it was for them to retrieve Naruto alive from his kidnapper. But the more they followed Naruto's trail, the more Kakashi doubted that he was kidnapped. Pakin was an excellent tracker, but he could only find Naruto's scent, which usually meant that he was alone the whole time. The rainstorm 2 days ago had really thrown them off for a while, but Kakashi felt like they were getting close. Judging from the scent, I would say that he is roughly 10 miles east of here. That puts him almost at the coast. If he goes out to sea we will never find him. Alright men, you know what to do. Kakashi said as they began to run east. Hold on Naruto, we're coming. Back with Naruto. Naruto began to eat the fruit he found. It was black and yellow and looked like a pineapple with swirl designs all over it. It tasted horrible, but unfortunately he wasn't in the position to deny any food. However, a noise in the bushes caught his attention. Scared that it was an Anbu, Naruto pulled out a kunai ready to defend himself after swallowing the fruit whole, but he was totally unprepared for what came out. The tiger came out of the brush. It was defiantly not a normal tiger because it was at least 3 times the size of a normal tiger. It easily carried half a carcass of a normal-sized tiger in its mouth as it looked around. The beast had tons of scars all over its body, most noticeably the long scar running down its right eye as it set its sights on poor little Naruto. With a massive chomp, the beast swallowed the carcass whole as it began to quickly move towards Naruto. Getting faster with each step, Naruto closed his eyes and waited for the monster to attack. Suddenly the sound of slashing swords filled the air, followed by a low growl. Naruto opened his eye just enough to see the monster fall to the ground dead. Standing before him was a red-haired muscular man wearing a straw hat, sweeping long, sleeveless, black high-collared cape, a simple white shirt half buttoned up, exposing the middle of his chest and upper abs, and wearing pants cut below the knee, collected halfway up the shin. Around his waist was a red sash that held the scabbard for the saber the man had used to kill the tiger. But most noticeable were a triple set of parallel, linear scars that pass vertically at an angle over his left eye. Hey, you okay kid? The man asked as he sheathed his saber. Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you. Naruto said as he got into a bound position. I wonder who can cook this thing. The swordsman said, not really paying attention to Naruto. What's your name, mister? Naruto asked, not really sure how to handle the situation. You know it is customary to introduce yourself before asking for another's name, the man said as he turned around. Oi kid, aren't you going to introduce yourself? He asked, snapping Naruto out of his trance. Oh yeah. My name is Naruto. And you are? Naruto said, extending his hand. Shanks. Captain Shanks. The newly named Shanks said, taking Naruto's hand and shaking it. So Shanks, what brings you all the way out here? I should be asking you the same question. Shanks retorted. I asked you first. Naruto said, holding his hands up defensively. Well, I went out for a walk this morning hoping to find a bar, then when I started to head back to my ship I found the cat. I figured I might as well bag some food before I get back, and that kitten over there looked tasty. Shanks said, pointing his thumb at the monster of a tiger. I told you why I'm here, so tell me why you are here, Shanks said as he sat cross-legged across from Naruto and pulled a bottle of sake out of nowhere as he began to drink. Well, I ran away from home about a week ago, and I have been living in these woods ever since. Trying to get to the ocean since it's been a dream of mine for a while now. Fine by me. Shanks said as he took another swing of sake. Aren't you going to ask me why I ran away? No, cause you see we all have our reasons for doing things. It isn't my place to pester you with questions about yourself. By the way, Shanks, what village are you from? You don't have a forehead protector, so I'm guessing you aren't even a shinobi. Naruto concluded as a small grin of amusement appeared on Shanks' face. Shanks laughed. A ninja. I've been called many things but never a ninja. I am a pirate, he said with a tone that resonated. Pride. Pirate. The word just echoed in Naruto's mind, he couldn't get rid of these thoughts. In all the books he read, pirates were not on his favorites list, but Shanks was different. If he was like a pirate from the book, he would have let that tiger kill him, but he didn't. Anyway Naruto, you look pretty tired and hungry. Tell you what, I'll take you with me if you want help getting to the sea. Shanks asked, standing up. Sounds good to me. Naruto answered. Before he knew it, Shanks swung Naruto onto his back while his arms hung around Shanks' neck. Using his right hand, Shanks grabbed the tiger corpse and headed east towards the shore. Stop right there. A voice called out. Shanks turned around only to find himself face to face with 20 Anbu, each with a leaf symbol on their forehead protectors. Naruto-sama, we are here to rescue you and kill your kidnapper, the leader said. Your family is extremely worried about you. Naruto tensed slightly when his family was mentioned, though it went unnoticed by everyone except for Shanks. Speaking of Shanks, because they found them like this, he was going to be killed for something he did not do. Friends of yours, Naruto? Shanks asked, feeling the need to protect the blonde. Not really, they are here to take me back to my home. You should run, these guys are on Buu level, the best the village has to offer. Naruto warned. The best, correct? Zoro said as he released the tiger corpse and moved his hands towards his swords. Let's see where I stand amongst the strongest this island has to offer, he said as he drew his saber, and a wild grin crept onto his face. Hold on tight, Naruto, and shut your eyes, Shanks ordered. Naruto hesitantly complied. Shanks burst forward in a burst of speed that stunned the Anbu. He was extremely fast. Before any could react, a large horizontal slash erupted from all the Anbu. Divine departure, he said as he reappeared behind the platoon as black and red lightning coated his blade. These guys were some of the best. Who am I kidding, this is the East Blue Iman, Shanks said as he sheathed Griffin. Alright Naruto, you can open your eyes now. When Naruto opened his eyes, he was met with the sight of 20 downed Anbu. To say he was stunned would be an understatement, he was shocked to say the least. Shanks had taken down 20 Anbu shinobi in less than a minute. Come on kid, let's get going, Shanks said as he once again headed off to the sea as rain began pouring down. 10 minutes later, Kakashi and his Anbu team looked at the scene before them with wide eyes. 20 battle-seasoned Anbu were beaten to a bloody pulp. Thankfully none were dead, though some may be if they didn't get treated right away. Your orders, sir, one of the Anbu asked. Akin, what do you smell? Kakashi asked his dog. Well, there are quite a few smells here, Kakashi, mostly this Anbu team. But besides them and Naruto, I smell another human smell, one that I haven't smelt before. It hangs closely with Naruto's scent and goes west before turning around to go east. I would say whoever made this mess was carrying Naruto the entire time, the nin dog summed up. Thanks, Akin. Everyone gather up the wounded and head back to Konoha. We need to hold off the search so we can save these men. At Jiraiya to pick up where we are leaving off. Now, Kakashi ordered. Whoever did this has Naruto-kun, but it's hard to tell if they are friend or foe. Naruto, if you are still alive, I hope you can escape and come back with us, Kakashi thought as he looked up into the dark rain clouds. It had been a long trip for Naruto and Shanks to get to the beach, but now seeing the beach, Naruto couldn't help but feel happiness flow through him. He was so close to starting his journey for his dream. Soon the silence was broken by a certain red-haired swordsman. Looking around, Naruto noticed an odd shape sitting close to the beach roughly half a mile north of where they were. Upon further eye strain, Naruto noticed the object had a distinct ship-like shape and there was what looked like a person and animal waving them over. Hey Shanks, is that your ship over there? Naruto asked as he pointed to the ship. Taking a look, Shanks said, well, what do you know, it's Bonk and Monster. Let's go, Naruto. Sure enough, Shanks began running towards the two figures, leaving Naruto in the dust desperately trying to catch up to no avail. By the time Naruto reached him and the other two, they seemed to be deep in conversation. Oh guys, this is Naruto. Shanks said, gesturing towards Naruto, and Naruto, this is Bonk, gesturing to the bald man, and Monster gesturing to the monkey. Nice to meet you, Naruto. Bonk said, shaking Naruto's hand. Nice to meet you too, Naruto replied. Hi, me Monster. The monkey named Monster said. As it waved. Holy shit, it can talk. Naruto screamed as he jumped back. He really hadn't expected Monster to talk. Come on, let's meet the rest of the crew, Shanks said as they got into a small boat and began to head towards the ship. The ship was a brig sloop-type ship with a red dragon figurehead adorning the bow. Other than that, it had a large room for its crow's nest with another large room at the stern, sitting just above a large cannon-like projection. As they climbed up the ladder, Naruto wondered what the rest of the crew was like, since these three seemed to be very nice and very unpirate-like. Naruto was brought out of his thoughts as he took his first steps on the deck. The deck was a lawn complete with trees, a slide and a swing. Looking around, Naruto concluded that this place was wonderful. Oh, hi guys, we're back and we found Captain Bonk called out as he got on the ship. Almost immediately, three other people came out of the kitchen. Two were regular-sized men roughly the same age as Bonk and Shanks. One had brown hair, a black shirt, and shaped scar on his left temple. He also wore green loose trousers with a yellow sash and buckled boots. The other was a dirty blonde whose hair was in dreadlocks. He wore a navy shirt and green trousers. Then Naruto noticed a large obese man wearing green and white sailor clothes while eating meat on the bone. "Captain, where the hell have you been? We've been waiting here for the last 2 hours. Honestly, we need to do about your silly wandering." The blonde-haired man scolded. "What are you talking about? It's exploring, not silly wandering." Shanks yelled back. "Who are you, kid?" The brown-haired man asked. "Oh right, I almost forgot, guys, this is Naruto." Shanks said, gesturing towards Naruto. "Naruto, this is Ben, Yasop and Ru." Shanks said as he pointed to each individual. "Hi, it's nice to meet you all." Naruto said, "You all seem like nice people." He added with a smile. "Naruto-san, why don't you tell us about yourself?" Yasop said. "Well, my name is Naruto. I come from a village of shinobi. I like beef ramen, reading, training, and you guys, I guess. There are things I hate: people who treat their friends or comrades like nothing, and those that take away the freedom of others. My dream is to go on a great adventure, make lots of friends, and become the freest man in the world. Believe it?" Naruto declared. "So Naruto, what brings you here?" The man named Drew asked. Naruto said he wants to come with us, so we are taking him. Shanks said, causing everyone to freak out, even Naruto. He had not really said that it was all Shanks' idea anyway. "What?" Everyone shouted, well, everyone except Ben, as he trusted his captain's judgment. "Shanks, we can't just take a kid. What about his parents? They are probably worried sick about him," Ru shouted. Turning around, he asked, "Hey Naruto, sorry about what this idiot said, but do you want us to take you home? I'm sure your family is very worried." "I don't have a family," Naruto said very quietly. "Half true." "What?" Yasop asked, stunned by his response. "Well, to be more specific, I have a family, but they've ignored me since the day I was born in favor of my older brother and sister," Naruto said. This stunned the entire crew. Some, Shanks, were just about to head to Konoha and raise it to the ground for what was done to their friend. "But how can we take him to sea with us, Captain? He's just a child that would be potentially killed," asked a concerned Ben. "He didn't want to see the child die due to harsh sea, that is the Grand Line. Simple, we'll take him to Dawn Island with us. There he can be safe. Hell, he could move there if he likes it enough. Though the choice is up to him. So what do you say, Naruto, wanna come with us to Dawn Island?" asked Shanks as he put forward his hand. "Yeah, I think I would like that a lot," he grinned as Naruto took Shanks' hand. 1 week later, on a hill overlooking a small village and the sea, was a sleeping black-haired boy. He was awoken by the screams of the villagers. As he focused on what was shouted, he kept hearing a certain word. "Pirate." Looking up and into the distance, he saw a large ship approaching. Running down the hill and into the dirt path of the sleepy windmill village Fuchsia. As he ran down the path to the harbor, he could see the red dragon figurehead of the ship as it was being docked. When he finally arrived, he was greeted by the sight of a blonde-haired boy that seemed the same age as him. When the other boy noticed the Ravenet, he asked a question. The question that would start the fated encounter of these two soon-to-be legends. "Who are you?" asked Naruto. "I'm Monkey D. Luffy. The guy who's gonna stop you pirate from attacking the village." Back in Konoha, Minato was pissed off and extremely distraught. First, Kakashi returned to the village against his orders, although he did return with 20 Anbu in critical condition. When the Anbu leader had awoken, Minato asked him if they had found Naruto, but the Anbu stared Minato in the eye and said, "You didn't tell us that we would be fighting a demon, Hokage-sama." Hearing this, Minato began to beat the poor Anbu because he thought the Anbu called Naruto a demon. "How dare you call my son a demon, you sorry excuse for an Anbu," Minato yelled as he landed more punches. "But Hokage-sama, I was talking about the man that had kidnapped Naruto. I would never call your son a demon." The leader was able to get out with a newly cracked jaw. Hearing this, Minato stopped and calmed down, and the Anbu began debriefing him. When he asked for them to describe the man, he was only given shudders from the Anbu. Gathering up his courage, the leader spoke. He was a swordsman, most likely a samurai. He wore a black cape with a red sash. He used a sword with such skill that I believe him to be superior to Kushina-sama in terms of swordsmanship. At this, Minato was stunned. Kushina was the best swordsman in all the Land of Fire. She was on par with several of the swordsmen from Tetsu, Kiri and Kumo, including the famed Zabuza Mamachi, Dari, and several samurai. And according to the Anbu, the man who kidnapped Naruto made her look like a noob. "Is there any other information we may need to know?" Minato asked, clearly concerned. "That was no man," the Anbu said as he looked out the window. "That was a demon in human form." Kushina Namikaze was having a very bad week. The day she found out Naruto was missing, she demanded that she go out and look for him, but Minato told her that was a bad idea. She had slapped him for this. Their son was out there alone in the hands of someone horrible, and Minato was telling her to stay put. Makoto had initially ignored Kushina when she tried to talk to her, so Kushina had to talk to Itachi instead. The boy had treated Naruto like a friend, and as such he was hesitant about talking to Kushina because he knew how much she and everybody else in the village had hurt him. Itachi, being the bigger man, talked to Kushina in private, so nobody knew he was talking to her. He told her about all the times he had saved Naruto from the villagers. How the Naruto she thought she knew was only a fragile mask about to break at any second, and even how Naruto had been planning to run away. When he finished his story, Kushina was hugging her knees while she cried a waterfall. She had seen just how badly she had failed her son. No, not her son. She no longer had the right to call him that unless he forgave her, which she doubted would ever happen. Kushina vowed in front of Itachi that when she finds Naruto she would make it up to him. No matter what the cost. To make matters worse, her daughter Natsumi's and son Menma's behavior had gone from bad to worse, and Kushina had noticed this while Minato did not. Upon discovering their behavior, Kushina felt disgusted with herself. She had ignored her youngest child for these brats. Not one to give in, Kushina had resolved herself to change her remaining children's attitudes for the better, which was tough when her husband and the entire village were against her, thinking they were perfect and could do no wrong. For the last week, when she was not looking for Naruto or trying to learn about him, Kushina spent most of her time in his room, crying to herself, unable to forgive herself for the atrocity she had committed against her son. There had been exactly 4 nights where she slept on his bed, staining his pillow with her tears, all the while repeating one name: Naruto. 7 months later. East Blue, Dawn Island. I've had it with you guys. Now you'll have to take me seriously, screamed Luffy. This is how tough I am, as he held the dagger higher. What's he doing? Asked Naruto. Whatever it is, he'd better hurry it up, said Yasop. On cue, Luffy stabbed the dagger under his left eye, drawing blood. Huh? Shouted all the red hair pirates. You idiot. What did you do that for? Screamed Naruto. The party's bar. A toast to Luffy's courage and our great voyage. Luffy sat down at Makino's, the only bar in Fuchsia village, as he enjoyed the sights and sounds of the red-haired pirates partying after they had returned from another successful voyage. All around him, pirates drank, ate, brawled, and played games as they celebrated their success and spent their money as if it was going out of style. The only thing that kept Luffy from enjoying himself was the horrible pain that afflicted his face after he had tried to prove his strength earlier in the day by cutting his under eye open with a knife to prove he wasn't afraid of pain. Ah, this didn't hurt one bit, he declared proudly to Shanks, the captain of the red-haired pirate sitting next to him and the man that Luffy had been trying to prove his strength. Liar, said Naruto as he sat next to Shanks. Don't ever do something so stupid again. Naruto's reprimand didn't faze Luffy. I'm not afraid of pain at all. Take me out on your next voyage, and I'll prove myself. Luffy proclaimed proudly. Instead of being impressed by his declaration, Shanks began to laugh. You don't have what it takes to be a pirate, Luffy. The red-haired pirate declared smugly. You're like an anchor in the water, and being unable to swim is a pirate's greatest weakness. Why do you think we got you that shirt? Luffy looked down at his shirt, which was emblazoned with an anchor. Shanks had gotten it for him a few months ago. Luffy frowned as he now realized the insult, but he refused to let it faze him. Then I'll just stay on land. I've been training hard, my punches are as strong as a pistol, he proclaimed while punching the air. Pistol fire, huh? Shanks said in a dismissive tone while sipping on his glass of sake, only half paying attention to what Luffy was saying. If Luffy was angry before, he was furious now. What kind of tone is that? One captain, one voyage wouldn't hurt. Lucky Ru chimed in as several crewmates voiced their agreement that taking Luffy out once would be harmless. Fine, I'll take him out if one of you stays behind, Shanks replied happily. Then I'll stay then, proclaimed Naruto. You don't count. You always stay here anyways when we're out on a voyage, explained the captain. Smarta, said Naruto as he had learned some colorful words while being part of the Yonko crew. We've said enough, let's drink. They immediately ran off to the other end of the bar to resume their partying. What kind of friends are you guys? At least Naruto tried. Luffy asked angrily while glaring daggers at the crew who had betrayed him. Look, Luffy, you're still too young. Wait at least another 10 years, then I'll reconsider taking you out to sea. Shanks said calmly. Luffy was anything but calm. Darn it, Shanks, I'm not a kid anymore. Look, calm down, here, have some juice. Shanks slid a mug of juice over from his side of the bar into Luffy's waiting hands. Luffy, never one to deny anything free, thanked Shanks and began to drink happily. Ahaha, you really are just a kid, look at him drinking his juice. Shanks laughed. His joke made the entire crew join in his laughter. If that juice is too strong for you, I can get you a nice tall glass of warm milk. Luffy felt embarrassed by the man's joke, so he decided to walk to the opposite side of the bar and sit next to Ben Beckman. Luffy, you should try and understand the captain's feelings, Ben Beckman said casually while taking a drag from his cigarette. Shanks, feelings? Luffy asked, genuinely confused. Yes, he is our leader. He knows being a pirate is interesting, but he also knows how dangerous it is for someone as young as you to be out at sea. Then paused to take another drag from his cancer stick. If you were hurt on a voyage, he would never be able to forgive himself. Luffy hung his head a little after that explanation. He knew being a pirate was a dangerous thing, but he couldn't help but want to join Shanks. Just then, another presence entered the room. It was the owner of the bar, a pretty young woman by the name of Makino. Her dark hair and simple green dress stood out amongst all the pirates in the bar. She carried a large barrel of sake over to many pirates who were running low on the drink. You seem to be having a fun time, Captain. She chimed in happily while setting the barrel down. Yup, making fun of him is my joy in life, was Shank's lighthearted response. Before Luffy could defend himself, Makino chimed in to stop the incoming fight. Luffy, Naruto, would you like something to eat? Luffy nodded happily and prepared for his meal, as so did Naruto. Makino-san, do you serve beef ramen? Asked the blonde. Not ever hearing of the dish, she shook her head. I'll have the same as Luffy then. Luffy realized he didn't have any money on his person, so he decided to make a promise. I don't have any money now, Makino, but I promise I'll pay you with my treasure. What treasure? Are you lying again, Luffy? Shanks questioned. No, I'm not lying. I'm going to be a pirate and pay her back with the treasure I find. Once he got lucky and found buried treasure, he would pay Makino back with interest. Makino smiled at that response. I'll just add it to your tab, Luffy, she said happily before walking to the kitchen to prepare the food. Several minutes later, the boys were biting into some steaks and talking with Shanks. So, how long are you going to stay? The blonde asked while trying to tear into the tough piece of meat. Well, set off a couple more times, then we'll head north. Luffy tried to hide his sadness at the news that they would be leaving soon. Well, I'll be sure to learn how to swim by then, Luffy stated proudly. Just then, the bar doors swung open and slammed against the wall, drawing the attention of everyone in the bar. A group of dirt-looking men walked into the bar. Their clothes were worn and filthy, but they were all well-armed and gave off a menacing presence. So these are pirates, huh? The group leader set out as he looked around the room at the red-haired pirates who had taken a break from their partying to view the bar's latest occupants. First time I've seen pirates, they look pretty dumb to me, he said, not caring they could hear everything. He walked up to the bar, stood right next to where Shanks was sitting and addressed Makino. We're mountain bandits, we aren't here to cause trouble. We just want to buy 10 barrels of sake. Makino ran a hand through her hair nervously before responding. I'm sorry, but we've run out of sake. Oh? Then what are all these pirates drinking? Is it water? He asked while gesturing to all the pirates in the room who were drinking. They are drinking sake, but that's all we have, Makino replied. The conversation began to bore Luffy. Looking over at his plate, he realized he ate all his food, but he was still hungry. He saw a small chest on the bar next to him, his curiosity overcame him, and he opened it up to see what was inside. It was a fruit, and it was unlike any he had ever seen before. Its skin was black and had numerous ridges on it that looked like scales. While most of the scales were black, there was an occasional red, yellow, and purple one. Never one to turn down a chance to try something new, Luffy took a big bite out of the fruit. He almost had to stop himself from gagging. It was bitter and seemed to taste spoiled. Luffy never believed in wasting food, no matter how terrible, so he ate the rest in one bite and washed it down with some juice. He was distracted from the horrible taste when he saw the bandit smash a bottle of sake that Shanks was kind enough to offer him. What shocked Luffy most was how Shanks didn't fight back. He just calmly cleaned up after the bandits. The leader took out a wanted poster. My name is Higuma, I've killed 56 people, and I have an 8 million Beely bounty on my head, he stated proudly, hoping to intimidate Shanks and everyone in the bar. Rather than be intimidated, Shanks simply ignored Higuma in favor of cleaning up the shattered bottle. Makino, I'm so sorry about the floor. Do you have a mop? Shanks asked as he began cleaning the mess. Seeing this, Higuma took out his sword and swiped it over the bar, destroying numerous bottles. There, since you like cleaning, you can clean all you want now, Higuma stated while laughing along with his fellow bandits. See you later, you bunch of chickens, he said right as he left through the bar's front doors. After a few seconds of silence, the bar erupted in laughter. Hahaha, he really got you, Captain, Lucky Roo stated cheerfully, causing more laughter amongst the crew. Even Shanks began laughing. Luffy was standing there, not believing what he was witnessing. What the hell was that? He yelled furiously. You should have fought him, what kind of man lets himself get pushed around like that? Shanks got up off the ground before addressing Luffy. It was just a little sake, it's not worth getting worked up about. After Shanks said that, Luffy simply turned around and began walking out of the bar. Hey, now don't leave, Shanks said while grabbing Luffy's arm, stopping the boy. I don't even want to look at you, Shanks. Let me go. I'm going to find a better role model. He yelled angrily, trying to shake the older man's grip. He could feel his anger building up as Shanks refused to let go of his arm. His arm suddenly began stretching. Luffy screamed as he finally noticed his arm. Luffy, did you eat this fruit? Questioned Roo as he brought out a sketch pad with a drawing of a purple-orange with swirled designs. Yeah, I ate it for dessert, you idiot, shouted Shanks. Luffy, that was a devil fruit and one of the treasures of the sea. Whoever eats one will get a great power, but will never be able to swim in the ocean again. You ate the Gomu Gomu no Mi, so now you're a rubber man. Luffy's jaw was literally hanging to the floor, he was stunned into silence. It seemed as if his dream of being a pirate just ended. Wait a minute. When I was leaving my home island I ate a weird fruit that had that same swirl. As Ain remembered Naruto. All the eyes of the red hair pirates turned to him. Huh, draw it on my sketch pad right now, demanded Roo. Naruto did as told and what was drawn almost gave Shanks a heart attack. He had drawn a pineapple. It was black and yellow, and it had swirl designs all over it. Immediately Bonk busted out the crew's devil fruit encyclopedia. Meanwhile Shanks was on the ground foaming from the mouth. Within 3 minutes he had found the fruit drawn. "Was it this one?" asked the bald man. "Yeah," the blonde replied. "Naruto, you ate the Uo no Mi model Ryujin, making you a dragon man. You may be able to even control some elements, but which ones are unknown," explained Bonk in shock. "Cool," said Luffy, not fully understanding the sheer magnitude of eating such a devil fruit. All the remaining pirates facepalmed. 2 weeks later. Party's bar. Luffy and Naruto were alone in the bar drinking some juice Makino served to them. The red hair pirates had left on a voyage 2 weeks ago. Without them, the bar seemed so lifeless. "I really misjudged those guys. I thought they were brave and tough," Luffy muttered sadly. "Are you sure about that, Luffy? Maybe sometimes it takes more courage not to fight," Makino said happily while she polished a glass. Luffy, however, did not look convinced. "Yeah, Shanks only fights when it's important, like protecting people, but when it comes to matters such as a simple drink he prefers to avoid violence," explained Naruto. "I would have fought." Luffy wasn't sure if he could win against guys like that, but ever since eating the devil fruit, he had been trying to control his rubber body to fight. As for Naruto, he thought about ways to figure out what his powers were. The bar door swung open. "Make way for the terror of the highlands." The mountain bandit from 2 weeks earlier walked in with his fellow bandits trailing behind him. They all took their seats around the bar. "No pirates in here today. It certainly smells better." He sat down and leaned back into his chair. "Well, what are you waiting for? We aren't so cruel that we won't pay, so serve us some sake." The boys watched as the bandits drank the bar dry, laughing and joking with each other as they did so. Those pirates were weaklings. Yeah, they act all cool, but they are just a bunch of sea rats that scurry away at the first sign of trouble. With each insult, they both felt himself getting progressively angrier. Naruto had always had a bit of a temper, but this was different. It felt like his stomach was on fire, and the fire was beginning to spread to the rest of his body. With each insult he heard directed at the red-haired pirates, he felt his body tighten as if there was something in him that was begging to come out. "Yeah, that captain was especially pathetic," Haguma toned in. "Eyes like him make me angry, a pathetic waste of space that should be out of his misery." "Shut up," Luffy roared as he glared at the bandit. "Shanks isn't pathetic. You say something, you little punk," Haguma asked as he turned to glare at Luffy. "You standing up for that chicken of a captain?" Naruto felt his anger boil to the surface, and it made him feel strong, stronger than he had ever felt before. As he gazed at Haguma, he felt the urge to crush him, tear him apart. "If you don't stop making fun of Shanks, what's wrong?" Haguma asked sarcastically. "Is the other baby angry that I insulted that pathetic pirate? What's a little brat like you going to do to me? Finger paint me to death? I'm going to rip and tear you apart." Haguma laughed as he drew his sword. "I'd like to see you try, brat. I think I'll cut off one of your friend's limbs to teach you why you should listen to your betters." The bandit stepped towards Luffy with his sword. Naruto looked up, and all he saw was red. Shanks strode towards Fuchsia village at a pace between walking and running. His crew members were behind him and trying to keep up as they hauled chestfuls of loot they had won on their last expedition and intended to use to buy all the booze in town. "Slow down, Captain," Ben Beckman called out. "Some of us are carrying loot. Then carry it faster," Shanks ordered in a harsher tone than he intended, but he couldn't help himself. It was only a week ago that Luffy and Naruto ate devil fruits, and ever since then, Shanks had been concerned. Well, he knew what Luffy's fruit could do. Naruto, on the other hand, had a dangerous fruit that was similar to a certain man. At first, he thought it was some mistake. Still, after going out on this voyage and obtaining a government-exclusive encyclopedia on devil fruits that detailed many fruits' histories, strengths, and weaknesses, he immediately ordered his crew back to Fuchsia. He hadn't found the exact fruit, not all the devil fruits had pictures, some lacked descriptions, and some only had names. But he had narrowed the possibilities of what type of fruit Luffy had eaten down to a handful, and none of them were good. He looked up and saw Makino running towards him and his men. The village was behind her, and he briefly glimpsed smoke rising from it. "Makino, what's wrong?" Shanks asked as the girl fell to her knees in front of him. "It's Luffy and Naruto. The bandits came back and began to make fun of you, and they got angry and..." He didn't stay to hear her finish. He ran with all the speed he could conjure and sprint towards the village. His surroundings became a blur as he pushed his body to its limit. As he got closer, he saw a decent amount of smoke rising from the village and saw that one of the town's many windmills was on fire, and as he entered the town proper, he saw the streets were littered with the bodies of dead mountain bandits. Many of them appeared to have been burned, but a few were torn in half, as if a savage beast had cleaved their bodies with its claws. He heard the sounds of his crewmates come up behind him as they finally managed to catch up with him. "What the hell happened here, Captain?" Ben asked as the sharpshooter gazed at the damage. Naruto has activated his devil fruit powers. Shanks answered as he looked around for any sign of him, but all he saw were the dead bodies of bandits. A few villagers were hiding in their homes or trying to put out the fires with water buckets. What kind of devil fruit could do this? Lucky Roo asked as the cook looked at the destruction. The fire, Loja. The bodies looked like they had been torn apart by a creature with claws. I would guess his own fruit, a carnivorous one that allows the user to attach with heat. Shanks now had a pretty good idea of which fruit it was that Luffy ate. It could only have been one of a few mythical's own fruits. He had seen many own fruit users during his travels with the Roger pirates. His own fruits were among the best for up-close combat due to their power increasing with the user's natural strength and the animal's strength usually being beneficial. But there were side effects with the user taking on traits of the animal. That became an issue with carnivorous zones. Individuals who transformed into carnivorous animals tended to be more violent, with their new animal instincts predisposing the user to hunt and commit acts of savagery. Most users could suppress their new animalistic instincts and get on with life usually. However, many who gave in to their new animalistic nature became more beast than man. Individuals such as the Beast Pirates, whose leaders were almost entirely composed of zone fruit users, were known to be ruthless individuals who acted with a savagery that rivaled the most feral animals. Shanks knew Naruto wasn't a savage, he was a good boy, but he was still a boy who had no experience controlling his new power and didn't have the mental fortitude to fight off such powerful urges, especially from the fruit as powerful as the one he had eaten. Shanks, Naruto he chased the bandits to the beach, said as Luffy as he came out from his hiding spot behind the tree. Suddenly, they heard screams coming from the other end of the village, near the small docks where smaller fishing boats would come and go from opposite of where his crew docked their much larger ship. Quickly, boys, we have to save Naruto, whatever you do, don't hurt him. We have to save him from himself. Luffy find and stay with Makino, ordered Shanks as he sprinted to the beach. Aguma sprinted at speeds he never thought possible as he made his way towards the docks of the village he was fleeing from. Behind him, he heard the footsteps of his men who were sprinting after him in mad desperation to escape the monster that now hunted them. He still wasn't sure what had happened. 1 second, that punk kid was yelling at him and he was walking over to teach that brat a lesson. The next thing he knew, the other boy's skin turned pitch black and the kid had let out a roar that scared him so severely that his followers and himself ran out of the bar. That decision probably saved his life, since the bar doors behind them had been thrown off their hinges and they were being hunted by a black-scaled creature with a body roughly the size of a horse, not counting its long tail. Aguma heard his men calling out for him as they ran behind him, but he ignored them. It was every man for himself. He heard several of them cry out in pain as they met their ends. He felt a burst of heat from behind him, followed by a scream as one of his followers was incinerated by light. He picked up his pace and eventually reached a fishing dock where a single small rowboat was docked. He jumped into the nearest one and, with his sword, cut the ropes that tethered it to the docks and immediately pushed off. Grabbing a set of oars, he began to paddle with all the strength he had in his arms and soon he was moving away from the docks and the black monster that had been following him. Aguma looked up at the docks that were getting farther away and saw a half-dozen of his men reach them. They began to cry out to him, begging him to return and not to abandon them. "Come back, Aguma. Don't leave us here to die. Get back here, you bastard." Aguma ignored them and kept paddling, and as he got farther away, he saw the monster that had chased them descend upon his remaining men. The creature's body was large and serpentine, covered in black scales that shone like darkened steel. It had a long serpent tail with a reptilian head that had a gold lion's mane with 2 great horns, like that of a devil. It had 4 spaced-out legs, and behind it was a massive tail tipped with a golden flame-like tail. It was a dragon, like out of the storybooks Aguma remembered reading when he was a child. He remembered reading about 2 different kinds of dragons, the long serpent-like ones that brought rain and good fortune. Then there were massive black ones that hoarded treasure, devoured knights, and kidnapped princesses. This dragon in front of him was a mix of both types, although much smaller but no less dangerous. He could only watch as the creature swung its tail and crushed several of his men who went flying through the air. The rest of his men jumped into the water and tried to swim away, but the creature responded by opening its maw and unleashed a gout of darkness that hit the water where his men were swimming. It attracted his men back to the beast like a magnet where they were ruthlessly mauled. Aguma quickened his pace and rowed as fast as his arms could go until they burned with pain from the exertion. The dragon onshore glared at him and let out a roar, followed by a massive breath of light that shot out across the surface of the bay and speeding towards Aguma's small craft. The last thing the man saw was a blinding light before he perished. "Naruto!" Shanks called out as he watched a black dragon shoot a light beam that crashed into the boat he had been pursuing. The dragon had begun creating flame clouds to help it reach Aguma's flesh that it wished to devour. Unfortunately, when it landed on the boat it capsized, dropping Naruto into the sea. Regardless of the massive power the boy had gained from the devil fruit he had eaten, he was still a hammer in the water, so Shanks shed his cloak and jumped in after the boy. The ocean wasn't cold, but felt unusually warm as he dove into the water of the bay. It took some time for him to reach where he saw the dragon fall, and with a deep breath and a deep dive, he managed to find Naruto's sinking body as it sank to the bottom of the bay. After several minutes of struggling, he managed to get the boy back to the docks where his crew was waiting with open arms and quickly took the boy from Shanks and his first mate, Ben Beckman, wanted no time to lay the boy down and started compressing the boy's chest. By the time Shanks pulled himself out of the water and came up alongside them, Naruto began to hack and cough up water as Ben gave one final compression on the boy's chest. Naruto's black eyes darted around until they finally fell upon Shanks. Tears began to flow freely from them. Shanks quickly picked the boy up and wrapped his arms around the child protectively. "Shanks," Naruto sputtered, his voice cracking with pain. Shanks held the boy tighter. "It's okay, Naruto, everything's going to be okay." "Shanks," the boy croaked again, his voice barely above a whisper. "I taste blood in my mouth, what have I done?" Shanks let out a tired sigh as he took a sip of whiskey straight from a bottle. The alcohol burned his throat and set all his senses alight as if they were on fire. He was currently sitting alone in Makino's bar, helping himself to her inventory of alcohol. While he usually preferred sake, he needed a variety of strong drinks to drown his sorrows tonight. He took a break from his drinking to look at the bar's door, or rather a lack of one since all that remained was a massive tarp that was being used to protect the inside of the bar from outside elements. Part of the building had been taken out when Naruto transformed inside of the bar and started his rampage. The door, a few buildings that had caught fire, and the entirety of Higuma's mountain bandits were the casualties of the day. That and a small boy's innocence. "I'm sorry, Naruto, it's all my fault," Shanks muttered as he reached for the whiskey bottle to take another swig, only for it to be taken away by the familiar form of Ben Beckman. "It's not like you to drink alone, Captain," Ben said as he pulled up a bar stool and sat next to Shanks. "You could try comforting Naruto, or you can help us in repairing the town." Shanks shook his head. Naruto was currently staying at the mayor's house with Makino and Luffy, while Shanks and his crew fixed up Makino's bar in the town. He knew that he should try comforting Naruto, but he could barely look at the boy without feeling guilt. "What comfort can I offer him when I'm the one that ruined his life?" Shanks asked angrily as he reached for another bottle of alcohol and took a swig. Naruto's memory of the day had been hazy, but the boy remembered bits and pieces. The boy remembered getting angry, tearing apart the Mount's bandits, setting fire to others, and worst of all, Naruto had remembered dispatching Higuma by biting the man in half. A child doesn't easily recover from this type of trauma. Killing is hard enough for grown men to deal with, but a boy Naruto's age having to deal with this is Naruto strong. Ben offered. "He has a will of iron, I'm sure he will bounce back from this. It will be a challenge, but he seems the type to face challenges. Also he has Luffy by his side to help him. While their friendship may have gotten off to a bad start, those boys became best friends who would stick with one another through thick and thin." Shanks saw the truth in Ben's words, but there was something else irking him. "It's not just that, Ben, it's that devil fruit he ate. It might just ruin his life." "Devil fruits can be a huge benefit to a pirate," Ben retorted. "He might not have one, but many pirates do. Heck, pretty much every crew of note in the Grand Line is either captained by a devil fruit user or has one among their crew. In Naruto's case, the kid seems to have a powerhouse of a fruit. He's going to be big when he gets out there as a pirate in earnest." "It's not just that, Ben," Shanks argued as he slammed down his drink and reached over to the side of the bar where a book was sitting. It was a book on devil fruits and their powers and categorized all known fruits. He slid it over to Ben, who took it and opened it up. "Devil fruits have side effects, especially carnivorous zone ones. Zone fruits imbue the user with certain traits from the animals they embody. For most zone users, this is mild, but it's different for carnivorous zone fruit users. They gain predatory instincts and other traits from their fruits. They gain power, but also violence and brutality come easier to them." Ben pulled the cigarette out of his mouth. "Naruto is a child," Shanks broke in, cutting off his first mate. "A child that eats his own fruit is even more susceptible to mental changes. Read it for yourself in that book." That book was written by Dr. Vegapunk himself, the greatest mind of this world. Ben did as he was bid and began to read. Let's see, children, in particular, are susceptible to mental changes brought on by a devil fruit, especially those of the zone classification. I believe this is due to the fact that children's brains are still developing neural pathways, thus making their minds more malleable to change when the fruit overwrites a person's lineage factor in order to adapt the person's body to the devil's power. This also applies as the child grows up with the fruit lineage factor affecting development during puberty. Further research is required to be sure. "Well, shit, that doesn't sound great." "Indeed it doesn't," Shanks replied as he leaned forward onto the bar. "The devil fruit he ate in particular, I'm pretty sure it's the mythical zone, the fish fruit model. Dragon God. There's only one other devil fruit user who has eaten a similar mythical's own fruit, and it's Kaido, who is more beast than man. Naruto isn't like Kaido. If you think he'll turn out like him just because of a devil fruit, then you're underestimating that kid, Ben argued. As for his fruit, what the heck is a dragon god? It's a dragon from Wano Legends, Shanks said, recalling his time in Wano when he was a cabin boy on Gold D. Roger's ship. A dragon that has scales as dark as night, 4 limbs, and has control over the light of the sun and the darkness of the moon. I can't recall all the details, but in Wano it's seen as a bringer of hope and good fortune, while Elbaf Legends it also speaks of this dragon, calling it Nidhogg. It's portrayed in Elbaf Legends as a great serpent that is greedy, vengeful, and destructive. Ben shook his head. All we can do is have faith in Naruto and hope that he takes the right path in life. Not much we can do about it now. Yeah, Naruto looked down in his hands as he considered what he would do next. The right path. He got up and set aside his drinks and walked out of Makino's bar, leaving behind the alcohol and his first mate. The night air was cool and crisp, the moon was full, which was nice because his men scurried about the village hard at work. Pirates weren't exactly the best when it came to manual labor, but he had a few shipwrights on his crew who were good at working with wood, and they were busy fixing up a windmill and several other buildings that had been damaged in the day's battle. His men scurried about carrying lumber, nails, and anything else needed to fix the damaged buildings. His crew made no complaint about their work. This village had been good to them for the last year, and this was the least they could do. Especially since it had been their fault that Naruto ate the devil fruit in the first place. His men had already gathered the bandits' bodies and thrown them in a massive pile just outside the village, where they were promptly set aflame, creating a gigantic bonfire that filled the air with smoke. It was as good a funeral as a criminal could expect to get in this day and age. Eventually, he reached the mayor's house, where Mayor Whoopslap allowed Makino, Naruto and Luffy to stay while the bar was being repaired. He entered through the front door and was greeted by the mayor, sitting at a small table with Makino, sharing a cup of tea. "How is he?" Shanks asked as he walked up to them. "He's doing well, all things considered," Makino answered as she took a sip of tea. "He coughed up some parts earlier." Shanks knew what she meant by parts, considering the fact that Naruto had torn apart the bandits, in Haguma's case biting the man in half. Shanks found himself cursing his pacifism. He had heard from Makino that Naruto had started this entire altercation by standing up for him and his crew when the bandits had insulted them. "I wish I had dealt with Haguma when he came into the bar that day. None of this would have happened. If wishes were boats, everyone in this world would sail." Mayor Whoopslap stated plainly, "It does no good to look back with regret. Instead, look forward with hope. I tried talking to the boy, but my words had little effect. I think you should give it a try. It will mean more coming from you." Shanks nodded and walked upstairs to where the boys were staying for the night. He found Luffy fast asleep and Naruto standing on a chair so that he might look out of a window. "Hi Shanks," Naruto stated without even turning around. "Hey, Naruto," Shanks replied. He looked out the window to see what the boy was looking at and winced at what he saw. The bonfire where his men had piled the bandits' bodies was going strong. Its flames leaped up into the air and lit up the entire village where his men were busy repairing the town's damages. "I did all this," Naruto stated plainly, with very little emotion in the child's voice. "I didn't mean to, I just got so angry, and before I knew it, everything was just. It's not your fault, Naruto. I'm the one who killed them. They chose their fate when they attacked you," Shanks replied. "Makino told me what happened. You were only trying to stand up for us when their leader drew his blade. Those who live and strive for violence will meet a violent end." They might not be the right words, but they were all Shanks could offer the boy. "I guess so," Naruto muttered sadly. What if it happens again? What if I can't control my power and hurt someone close to me like Makino or Luffy?" "You won't," Shanks stated confidently. "How do you know?" Naruto asked as he hopped down from the chair and sat cross-legged on the ground. "How can you be so sure I won't change and hurt one of the villagers?" "Because you're strong," Shanks said as he put a comforting hand on him and sat on the floor across from the boy. "You're probably one of the strongest kids I've met on my travels. Even after experiencing whatever you did on your birth island, you still choose to put a smile on your face. Kids like you and Luffy are gonna surpass the previous generations," Shanks replied. "I need to get my teasing in now while I can. In a few years, you'll both be strong enough to kick my butt, so I need to enjoy my teasing while you're small and scrawny. Does that mean you'll take me and Luffy on a voyage?" Naruto asked, his eyes sparkling with excitement. Seeing Naruto's mood go through such a change filled Shanks' heart with joy, to the point where he considered it, but he knew better. "You're both still too young, Naruto. Heck, I wasn't allowed to go on a voyage until I was 9 years old, and even then, I was a ship's apprentice who cleaned the deck, did the laundry, peeled potatoes, and unclogged the toilets. But that's only 2 years older than I am right now," Naruto argued. "And we wouldn't mind doing all those crappy jobs either. Can't you just do one voyage?" "Nope." Shanks felt terrible, but he wasn't budging on this issue. "Trust me, Naruto, the ocean is a dangerous place. I learned that the hard way. I have no doubt you'll be a great pirate one day, but for now, you should focus on training yourself. If you master that devil fruit power of yours, then there won't be anyone in this world who can stop you." "Really?" Naruto asked, excitement evident in his voice. "So what is my power exactly? I know I can change into a giant creature, but I didn't see myself in the mirror or anything." Shanks couldn't help but smile at the boy's childish excitement. "You are a mythical's own devil fruit, one that allows you to turn into a dragon, a serpentine beast from Elbaf and Wano legends. There's only one other pirate in this world that I know of who has a fruit similar to yours, and he's widely regarded as the strongest creature alive." Really, Naruto was obviously thrilled. "Yes, but promise me you'll train and never rely on your devil fruit too much," Shanks stated thoughtfully. "In your case, training should never be ignored. Your dragon form will grow in strength proportional to your human form. In other words, the stronger you are as a human, the stronger you will be as a dragon. You should also try learning a martial art or getting a weapon. It becomes beneficial when you use your hybrid form." "Hybrid form? The cross between your dragon and your human form." Shanks judged that he was confusing the poor boy. It couldn't be helped since he was hardly the authority on devil fruits. "Don't worry about that for now." "Okay," Naruto answered simply as he leaned back. "So, what type of ship were you an apprentice on? Was it a pirate ship?" "Yup." Shanks nodded, glad the boy's mood was back to normal. "I was just an orphan in West Blue living on the streets. It was just me and another kid my age named Boogie." Shanks spent the rest of the night telling Naruto stories about his past voyages, happy to offer the child a distraction from the horrors of the day's events. Luffy and Naruto watched as the re-dared pirates finished packing up their belongings. It had been a little over a month since he had unlocked the powers of his devil fruit and he was still coming to terms with it, but he promised himself he would be strong so that he never found himself in such a position again. As he stood on the docks, Shanks came up alongside him. "You're leaving for good?" Luffy asked, already knowing the answer. "Yup," Shanks replied. "We've been in this peaceful sea for too long. We need to get back to the Grand Line. If we stay here much longer, the Marines will get word of us." "Are you both going to beg us to take you?" "Nope," the two boys replied simply. "I want to go, but I've decided to become a pirate by myself when I've become comfortable with my new power," said Naruto. Until he could reliably control himself when in his dragon form, he would hold off on becoming a pirate. "Even if you master the ability to become a dragon at will, I'm still going to be a league above you," Shanks replied. "My crew and I are going to grow strong as well, but don't worry, leave some treasure for you and whatever crew you assemble. I will become a pirate," Luffy declared stubbornly. "I'm going to have a crew that's bigger and stronger than yours. And I'm going to find the biggest treasure and become the king of the pirates." "You're wrong," Luffy started off Naruto. Luffy and Shanks looked towards him as he said, "The one who's gonna become the king of the pirates is me, so I'm gonna assemble a crew that's better than both you and Shanks combined." Shanks smiled. "So you're both going to be bigger than us, eh?" he asked in a light tone. "And you're going to find One Piece? I never had much interest in that treasure, but if you want it, then I have something for you." They watched as Shanks took off his treasured straw hat. He put it on Luffy's head. "Do me a favor, Luffy, and keep this hat safe for me," Shanks began. "As for you, Naruto, here's my old Captain Saber," he said as Yasop threw the sword to Shanks, which he gave to the boy. "Its name is Ace, so take good care of it and become a swordsman that surpasses me," Shanks said. "Promise that you'll give them back to me when you've both become great pirates," Shanks finished. Both boys nodded as a river of tears poured down their eyes. They remembered all the good and bad times they shared with Shanks and the Red Hair Pirates. However, they would never forget this moment for the rest of their life. This was their promise of a lifetime. Just like that, Shanks and his crew began boarding the Red Force. Weigh the anchor, raise the sails, we're off with the tide. The ship began moving as it sailed off into the sunset. Towards the end of the infamous Grand Line. The sea known as a grave of many dreams except the greatest. "Those kids are gonna make something of themselves in the future," said Ben. Light waves started crashing into their ship as the wind began to pick up. "Yeah, they remind me of my old captain," began Shanks. "Goldie Roger. I hate this place," Luffy muttered angrily as he and Naruto trudged over a rickety wooden bridge that crossed over a deep ravine. It had been a little over 3 months since his grandfather Garp had dumped him and Naruto on the outskirts of the Goa Kingdom to live with mountain bandits of all people. At first Garp seemed to be respectful to Naruto, but upon learning of his orphan status and friendship with Luffy, he adopted the boy as his second grandson. So now he was included into the Monkey D. Garp's ruthless training regime with Luffy. He hated it, but the only thing he hated more than mountain bandits was being alone. That was why he found himself trudging with Luffy after the only other person around his age in these mountains, an older girl by the name of Aisha. So far, Aisha had scoffed at any attempt at friendship, even attacking Luffy when he tried following after her. But Luffy was determined and stubborn, which was why he now found himself trudging with Luffy after Aisha through the woods outside of Aiden's bandit camp. He took another step over the bridge where he knew Aisha had walked and stopped when he heard it creaking. The rickety bridge suddenly gave way and Luffy began to fall into the ravine. With all his might, Naruto began to conjure up flame clouds to save himself and Luffy from falling to the bottom of the deep ravine. Naruto and Luffy began crawling to the other side. He hadn't yet mastered his new powers, and his flame clouds was the only ability he could use without losing his sanity and going on a rampage. He fell onto the dirt in a heap. He was breathing heavily while sweating profusely. He had been training with his devil fruit quite a bit but made very little progress. He could turn portions of his body into that of a dragon, but the appendages were strange, hard to control, and exhausting to use. Attempting to turn into a full dragon wasn't much of a better choice either. Whenever he fully transformed, he was overcome with either rage or greed. Even when in his normal human form, he found himself being more attracted to treasure. He loved it almost as much as ramen, which was just wrong, but he couldn't help himself. He just loved shiny things. He had stopped turning into a full dragon after his grandfather had to beat him up to stop him from stealing all the money in Fuchsia village. This damn fruit has turned me into an overgrown magpie, Naruto muttered as he picked himself up and focused on the task at hand. Now where did Aisha go? Muttered Luffy. Naruto crouched down on all fours and sniffed the ground. His senses had grown far more sensitive since his transformation. His sense of smell, in particular, had significantly increased. He could hunt down anything with his new and improved nose. So he focused on the smells all around him. He could smell rotting vegetation, numerous animals, sweat, blood, and Aisha. Aisha smells like treasure. That was another thing Naruto found himself able to do more and more of lately. He could smell and sense treasure. Anything golden or valuable he could pick up on either with his nose or through some strange new sense he now possessed. Ever since meeting Aisha, the girl always smelled like treasure. Luffy followed Naruto as he tracked the scent through the woods, but soon, the smell of Aisha was overcome by the smell of rotting garbage and burning trash, and just about everything smelled like some sort of waste until Aisha's scent was utterly drowned out. Not knowing what else to do, Luffy followed him until they reached a massive mountain of garbage sitting just outside of a gigantic walled city. Wow, as disgusting as this place smelled, the boys couldn't help but be amazed at its size and majesty. Forgetting about Aisha, they quickly set about exploring his new surroundings. They spent hours talking to random people and seeing every inch of this unique place. Luffy learned that this was the Goa Kingdom. He knew about it since it was the main settlement on Dawn Island, but hearing about it and seeing it were two entirely different things. He discovered that the area they were in was called the Grey Terminal, the home of the less fortunate of the island. He explored as much as he could until suddenly, his exploration of his new surroundings was stopped by a group of armed men trudging through the trash heap. I hear that Porkami is close to finding Aisha and Sabo, one of the men stated as he walked at a brisk pace towards the woods. Good, if we don't find the treasure those kids stole, then Captain Bluejam will have his head and outs. Another rugged man replied. Yeah, let's go finish those brats off. Luffy crouched low to the ground and followed the group of men, while Naruto was hoping they would lead him to Aisha and maybe some treasure. Naruto shook those thoughts from his head. Just Aisha, I don't need treasure, no sir, I don't need any of that golden, beautiful, valuable treasure. He shook those thoughts from his head. He didn't need to embrace his more draconic aspects right now. He needed to help Aisha so that the girl could become his friend and he could have more friends. Luffy followed the men to a forested area where they joined another group of men gathered around a massive tree. There were maybe a little over a dozen men, all of them surrounding two young kids hanging from one of the tree's huge branches by long thick lengths of hempen rope. One of the teed-up figures was Aisha, and the other was a boy that Luffy didn't recognize. He was a blonde boy with a large hat. I don't have much time. The lead man stated he was a brute of a man with numerous tattoos etched onto his muscled body. I know you two took the treasure that I was going to deliver to Captain Bluejam, so tell me where it is, and I promise to only break a few fingers on each of your hands instead of gutting you where you hang. Never, Aisha replied angrily. It looked like she had put up quite a fight before being captured. If her bruised and bloody form was anything to go by. If you needed it so badly, maybe you should have protected it better, brat. The man yelled angrily as he delivered a punch to Aisha's face. I'm a dead man if I don't give Bluejam his money, so I've got nothing to lose. If I'm going to end up dying and going to hell, I'm going to drag you two with me. So I'll ask nicely one more time, where is my money? Naruto felt a fit of familiar anger building up inside him. It was the same type of rage he felt in Makino's bar all those months ago. His body moved on its own as he stepped out of his hiding place among the bushes. Let her go. On cue, Luffy also walked into the clearing with the same feelings as Naruto, no doubt coursing through him. Aisha was considering telling Porkami where their treasure was. The man was a monster and would not make empty threats. As much as it pained her to give away the location of hers and Sabo's hard dishonest work, these last 5 years, she didn't want Sabo to suffer torture and death over some treasure. Let her go. Everyone's eyes turned to the figure of Naruto, with Luffy standing next to him about a dozen yards from where they were all situated. Aisha couldn't believe her eyes. Those stupid brats from Dayton's bandit camp had followed her all the way to the Great Terminal and was putting themselves in danger for her. "This isn't your business, Blondie," Aisha called out, angry that she had been followed. "Go back home and leave me alone." She was cut off from speaking further due to Porkami delivering a vicious punch to her chest that knocked the wind out of her lungs. "Who the hell are you, brat?" Porkami asked, taking his attention away from Ace. "This has nothing to do with you. Get the hell out of here unless you want to be strung up like these two brats." "I said to leave them alone," Naruto growled. "Boy Aisha," Sabo spoke up weakly. "Who the hell is this kid?" "The brat from Dayton's," Aisha croaked as she regained his breath. "What's a kid like you going to do to me? Are you going to punch my shins?" Porkami let out a laugh that his men were quick to join. "You an idiot or something, kid? Get the hell out of here before I kill you." "No," Naruto replied, his voice growing colder. Aisha felt a chill run up her spine. It was as if her fight-or-flight instinct had finally kicked in. She had never run away from a fight before, but for the first time in her short life, her body was telling her to run. "Then you get to join these brats, you little punk," Porkami yelled as he started to approach Naruto. Aisha knew Luffy ate a devil fruit. She had seen the boy's skin be stretched and had seen the boy move his rubbery limbs around, but his abilities seemed more like a hindrance than anything else. The blondie on the other hand she knew nothing about. Whether or not he had eaten a devil fruit was no longer a mystery, as now she could only watch as the boy's entire body turned black with dark scales and his body grew in size until it was as large as a horse, not counting the massive tail. "You really are a dragon," Aisha found herself muttering as she watched the boy change before her eyes. Porkami and his men were in even greater states of shock as they tried to make sense of what they were seeing. "What is that thing?" "It's a dragon. Idiot, dragons aren't real." "I don't care what it is, kill it," Porkami ordered loudly as he drew his blade. "Show this creature the strength of the Blue Jam pirates." One of Porkami's men obeyed immediately and ran at the dragon, attempting to cut it with a saber. However, the dragon used its tail much like a scorpion and flung aside the man as if he were garbage. Several other men attempted to avenge their comrade, but they were sent flying with a tail swipe that sent them crashing into trees or onto rocks where they lay motionless. "Go to hell." The dragon then turned to the remaining pirates and let out a massive beam of light, and Aisha winced as the temperature in the clearing rose dramatically. She heard the sounds of screams as numerous pirates were engulfed in flames. They ran about the clearing trying to put themselves out to no avail. The fire burned them until they were nothing but blackened husks. However, during the chaos, Porkami had escaped kidnapping Luffy with him. If he couldn't get the other three brats to tell him where the treasure was, he'd find out by torturing this brat. With all his foes dead, the dragon approached Ace and Sabo. "Please don't kill us, Mr. Dragon," Sabo wailed as he struggled against his bindings. "You can have all our treasure, just don't eat us." "Treasure?" the dragon asked, its voice sounding both deep but also light and childish. "You have treasure? Where is Aisha? Where am I?" Suddenly, the dragon began to shrink until all that remained was a very dazed and confused-looking Naruto. "On crap," Naruto muttered, eyes scanning the environment around him. "I did it again." "Wait a minute, where's Luffy?" asked Naruto. 1 hour later. At first the pirates found out quickly that Luffy was basically untouchable. He was confident that he could hold out till Aisha, Naruto and Sabo made it here. Even if they took a while. That confidence was short-lived when he was chained up with something that, while not fully getting rid of his powers, weakened him. He wasn't sure what it was. He doesn't have the same weakness as most fruits to the ocean. The ocean loves him and he had. Yet this weird metal sapped him enough where he felt numb. Porkami chuckles. "We thought they were myths. Glad the captain did research in case we came across them. Your devil fruit's intangibility won't work now. After we find that treasure, I'm sure you will fetch a pretty penny as well. It might just be enough to save our lives." He turns to the other ones and yells to go find the other brats. Luffy then felt a punch rip his skin with spikes. He glares at him. "Just kill me, I won't talk." Porkami smiles. "Oh, did you not listen to what I said? We are selling you. I'm sure the nobles. No, I bet we could sell you to a world noble and get a pretty penny. Their treasure is just a bonus at this point." Luffy spits at him. "Well then, beating me is pointless. I won't talk." The pirate's eyes narrow. "We will see." The pirate starts to throw punch after punch. With every hit, Luffy begins to feel the pain rise like a tsunami. He steels his resolve as he knows Naruto will come save him. But that fact solidified into his mind. He began to tolerate the pain. And it worked. For a quarter of an hour. Luffy was later rescued by Aisha, Naruto and Sabo. Aisha, having seen what they did to Luffy, showed no mercy. Even after they defeated the pirate, she continued to bash him with her steel pipe. It took Sabo physically pulling her off and telling that Luffy is hurt worse than he knows how to fix to get her to stop. The three ran carrying Luffy back to Dayton's. When they came crashing through the door, causing Dayton to nearly have a heart attack. After Luffy was bandaged up, Aisha began questioning him and Naruto. "Why the hell did you idiots follow me?" Aisha growled like a rabid dog. What is it you want from me, and why did you get yourselves involved in business that isn't yours? Naruto gave her an incredulous look. All we wanted is the same thing I've been asking for the last few months. He stated. I just want to be friends, being alone with those mountain bandits is torture. So I was hoping we could be friends and go on adventures. That's it, Aisha yelled angrily. You followed me through woods infested with wild animals, searched through mountains of trash, and killed a bunch of pirates just so we could be friends. Yeah, Luffy replied as he picked his nose. That's what we said. Are you some kind of idiot that needs to be told something a bunch of times to understand it? He turned to the other boy who had gotten himself free from his bindings and came up to stand next to Aisha. I have no idea who you are, but we should also be friends, okay? The boy replied cheerfully as he smiled, revealing that he was missing a tooth. My name is Sabo, who are you, and how can he turn into a dragon? He pointed at Naruto. Luffy was more than happy to explain and did so with gusto. He told Sabo about Shanks, how they ate their devil fruit, their powers, and about how they were sent to live with Dayton by his grandfather. He would have kept talking, but Aisha stopped him. How did you even find me? Aisha asked as she gestured to the woods around them. Did you seriously track me through the great terminal and the woods? I sniffed you out. Naruto gestured towards his nose. Ever since I gained the ability to turn into a dragon, I've been able to track things through my sense of smell alone. You were easy to follow since you smell like treasure. My nose is extremely good at smelling treasure. You can smell treasure? Aisha asked, her voice filled with evident skepticism. How is that possible? It makes sense. Sabo chimed in. In all the stories I've read, dragons have a nose for treasure and use that sense to gather massive piles of it to sleep on. Yup. Luffy nodded, confirming the fact. Naruto sniffed the air and got a good whiff of treasure. In fact, I smell a great deal of treasure nearby. He began walking around the clearing until he reached the tree that Aisha and Sabo had been hanging from. I don't know why, but for some reason, this tree reeks of treasure, he said as he climbed it. You really can smell treasure, Aisha muttered. This is great. Sabo cheered happily as he walked up to the tree. This is where Aisha and I have been storing treasure and money we've stolen from people here for the last 5 years. We plan on becoming pirates, and this treasure is how we're going to afford to buy a ship and sail out of here. You also want to be pirates? Luffy asked, not believing what he was hearing. Not only had he found new friends, but they also shared the same dream as him. I'm the guy who is going to be the pirate king. No, it's me, shouted Naruto from up top. Are you now? Sabo chuckled. I like these guys, Aisha, we've got to cut them in. No. She spoke up angrily. You want us to split our treasure 4 ways. It took us years to get the amount we have, but with his nose and our skills and the extra hands, we can make up the difference and then some. Sabo stated cheerfully as he turned to Luffy. How about it, Luffy? Want to join us in our quest to rob the uppity nobility like real land pirates? Of course. Luffy cried out, excited at the prospect of having 2 new friends and going on all sorts of adventures. Count me in, said Naruto as the trio began scheming a big heist as Aisha began brooding to herself. In the following months the 4 of them ran a campaign of terror through the Goa kingdom, doing whatever they pleased. Luffy was stronger than ever and could control his rubbery body to some extent now. Naruto now could also turn into his dragon form comfortably, with his hybrid form being a work in progress. Thanks to some sword training from an old pirate captain, he could now wield a somewhat now. Also, both Aisha and Sabo could now beat up members of the Blue Jam crew with moderate difficulty. Altogether the kids were the strongest group in the kingdom. Eventually the 4 became siblings as much as Aisha wanted her and Naruto to stay as just friends, something that both Sabo and Luffy could not understand. Flashback. One winter's day when the group went hunting, Luffy got hurt badly by the mountain tiger. The boy foolishly fought the beast because it had taken his first solo kill and wanted to get it back. Using its paw, it slapped away the rubber boy into a stone ledge, causing a crater. After swiftly escaping to Dayton's compound, Luffy was found to have broken bones, putting him out of commission for a week. Sabo, not trusting the bandits and afraid of the Blue Jam pirates coming to attack, stayed back. This left Aisha and Naruto to do the hunting for the week, leading to the current situation found themselves. On the 4th day, they decided to hunt for some crocodiles near the Great Terminal. Finding nothing so far, they chose to split up. Naruto had an odd feeling ever since he and Aisha split up. He kept hearing voices all around him. He was on guard the entire time, but he still didn't know what was happening. Naruto continues to search for crocodile footprints when he senses a bullet is about to be shot at him. Thinking quickly, he drops everything and rolls to the right as a bullet hit where his leg had been. Naruto quickly sees that it was a sea stone bullet. These guys really are banking on a pretty paycheck from me. Naruto quickly gets out of the way as a sword hits where he was just at. He doesn't want to find out just how far they were going to go to get him. He blocks 2 swords with his saber. He was about to transform when a chain was wrapped around his neck and his strength immediately weakened. He still managed to get him off, but not before one of them slipped a cuff onto one of his wrists. When he finally got them away from them, but then he felt a pipe hit his back. He doesn't have time to think on the pain as he senses that someone had another chain, so he narrowly dodges out the way and cuts them on their front with his slashes. He counts 11 pirates now that he has taken one out. He smiles. He may not be able to use his fruit right now, but that doesn't mean he can't take them out. He senses one about to shoot at him, and before the pirate has time to think and he slams his sword into his chest, killing him. Naruto, while hating killing, wouldn't shy away from it. He was going to be a pirate after all. He quickly focuses back to the fight. Out of the 10 remaining there are 3 with guns, so in quick succession he takes them out using a slash, killing 2. His body begins aching, but he was used to pain. Meanwhile, in the few seconds that Naruto took to take out the gunmen, the swordsmen huddle back, the back looking horrified. One of them voices this fear. I thought Captain Blue Jam said that once that cuff or the chains were on him he'd be useless. Answers back instantly as they see the final gunner who was trying to get to the huddle. Brutality killed as if by nothing from a blow to his head. We must have been lied to, or he was talking about that girl. It was then that Naruto appeared in front of them, laughing like a demon, scaring them more than even Blue Jam. No, you were not lied to. This is just how strong I am without my fruit. Naruto then disappears from their view, and a scream is heard as one of them goes down, followed by another till the last 2 try to run away, but are struck regardless. Naruto had killed 8 of the 12 people who had come to capture him and Aisha. None of them had the keys to the cuff, and he was hurt bad. But he had to power through if he wanted to save Aisha. With great speed he ran towards where he last saw her to see she was on the cusp of unconsciousness. There were 3 men looming over her, all holding bloodied brass knuckles. The brat was weaker than what the captain had been told. We better kill Porkami for the misinformation. Let's focus on taking the kid to Blue Jam first. Hearing enough, Naruto blitzed towards the pirates and brutally mutilated them using his saber. Ace. However, his rampage was cut short by the 4th pirate coming out and shooting his arm. Ah, screamed the 7-year-old boy as he clutched his profusely bleeding arm. However, he had to tolerate the pain. He had to protect his friend. He had to protect Aisha. Naruto began walking towards the man with his saber. Every shot fired he dodged barely, until he decapitated the man. Beaten, battered and hungry, he carried Aisha all the way back to the compound. Why? She whispered. Why what? Naruto replied. Why did you protect me? Aisha asked. Because you're my friend, and how can I become the king of the pirates if I can't protect one of my precious people, he simply said. However, the next question was a make or break for her. Do you want me to live? She asked. As she awaited an answer, she thought back to the times she asked people if Roger had a child. How people would call that child a devil. How people thought she was better off dead because of her father's actions. You, Sabo, Luffy and even Dayton and the other mountain bandits are like the family I never had and the family I've always wanted. Naruto said as he let out a teary-eyed smile. So yes, I want you to live. Flashback end. That was day port as Aisha fell in love with Naruto. He accepted her as who she truly was. The daughter of the previous pirate king, and yet still wanted her to live. She had started to see him as a source of strength for herself after the coming events. Someone who she could drop her guard around and protect her forever. Then there was the Garp incident. When Garp was chasing them, Sabo yelled something about Grandpa using the hockey thing that the old pirate captain had told them about. That wasn't the thing to say. Because then Garp declared that instead of every 6 months he was going to come every 3 and actually train them, not just beating them up. They built their own hideout. It was decked out with a beautiful view of most of the island and a ton of traps to deter the Blue Jam pirates and unfortunately Dayton, though their months of play and training quickly came to an end. Naruto smiled as he counted the latest treasure haul. It sat before him like an ocean of gold, silver, and gemstones. The only way the sight could be even more beautiful was if there was meat mixed in with the treasure. It had now been a year since he had become friends with Luffy, Sabo and Aisha. 6 months since they had shared drinks and become siblings. Yet, it felt like he had known the 3 his entire life, as if they had all been born into the same family and had grown up together. Naruto shook those thoughts from his head as he opened up a black book and started counting the haul. He wasn't sure if it was his devil fruit, his greed, or some new development in his brain, but he had grown extremely good at math, specifically when it came to counting up and dealing with large sums of money. The start of it all had been the issue of taking all the forms of currency they had stolen, the gold, the silver, the beeli, and numerous types of coinage, and turning it into a common value. So he drew up a table that allowed them to do just that. In fact, all forms of money-related math such as compound interest and numerous other things came to them as easily as breathing. The ability to do math hadn't been the end either. Naruto had also taken up reading for fun, the result of his brother Sabo shoving books in front of him as a way to relax, to give him a break from the constant bookkeeping he did for them. Naruto had been skeptical about reading at first, math and reading had been a necessary evil to him more than anything else. However, Sabo had been right, and reading was fun. His favorite books were ones about pirates, such as the Sparrow Pirate's Adventures, the very books that made Sabo want to become a pirate when he was a child. Using his reading and writing skills, Naruto began to add up the haul and write down its details into the log. As he started counting up the haul, Sabo, Luffy and Aisha joined him in their own personal fort, where they counted up the money before storing it away in a secret hiding place. "I got some more good stuff," Sabo stated as he emptied out numerous pieces of jewelry and coins into the pile. Sabo favored pickpocketing nobles in the Goa Kingdom, and as a result, most of his loot was expensive jewelry and finery. "I got some too, Naruto-kun." Aisha dropped several small gold bars and other odds and ends onto the pile. Aisha preferred robbing people by the docks, mainly wealthy merchants and pirates on shore leave. "Wow, great haul, guys," Luffy said as he looked at the various treasures. "I found some stuff too," Luffy said as he a bag full of bears. Luffy preferred hunting rare animals and selling their body parts such as crocodile skin. Naruto had a sixth sense for treasure and could tell the value of something with just a glance. He looked closely at the gold and gave it a big sniff with his nose. 18 carats, with 2 pieces of 22 karat gold, multiplied by 3, and with the common exchange rate, we have a haul of about 20 million bili, assuming we can sell the gold embroidered silks. It's freaky how you can tell an item's value by sniffing it, Aisha pointed out as she leaned against one of the walls of their wooden hideout. "It's cool but freaky. That's the part you find weird?" Luffy asked as he sat down. "Not the part where he can turn into a giant black-scaled light-blasting lizard. I think that's the cool part," Sabo added as he sat down next to the treasure and began stuffing it into bread bags for easy transport to their hiding spot. "Although it would be cooler if you didn't go on a rampage half the time you changed." "I'm getting better," Naruto argued, although sometimes he wondered if he was. He's made very little progress with his hybrid form. A strange combination of human and draconic limbs was hard to balance. His body was simply too small to handle the new appendages. As for his full-size transformation, he had to be of a perfectly calm mind to change into a full-grown dragon. Otherwise, he would run off in search of treasure, hunt animals, or if someone had pissed him off or threatened him or his family, he would attack that person wildly. However, he could control himself well when he did transform under calm conditions. He particularly enjoyed flying around the island with his siblings on his back. His draconic torso was just big enough for both boys to ride comfortably. "Well, if you master your devil fruit, then you can become a sky pirate," Sabo said happily. "You could just fly around and rob all the rich people of this world just like a real dragon." "Yeah, I could." Naruto reached over to a nearby bag and produced a beautiful tobacco pipe that Sabo had stolen from a nobleman a few months ago. It was supposedly made from rare wood, and the nobleman used it as a status symbol. It was primarily black with golden designs worked into the wood. Aisha, Luffy and Sabo had tried to smoke with it like they had seen grown-ups do, but it set them coughing. Naruto, on the other hand, found the act of smoking enjoyable. He put some tobacco leaves into the pipe and breathed lightly into it, his breath igniting the leaves. Aisha coughed as some of the smoke flew towards her. "Naruto-kun, I can't believe you enjoy that. Just breathing that stuff makes me feel like I'm inhaling glass and ash." "I like it," Naruto stated as he took a deep puff from the pipe before breathing out the smoke. "If anything, it makes my lungs feel great." After smoking, he always felt refreshed and found that he could breathe better. "I guess it makes sense, dragons like to breathe smoke, fire, and brimstone," Sabo muttered as he waved the smoke away from his face. "Just don't let your old man Garp catch you smoking that thing." Naruto winced at that thought. His gramps came by occasionally to train him, Aisha, Luffy and Sabo. His idea of training was doing a productive learning session, then beating the crap out of them and dropping them into dangerous situations. He put out his pipe and set it aside as he helped Aisha and Sabo gather up their ill-gotten gains into bread bags to haul off to their stash. Once the loot was packed up nicely, they took it out of the hideout they made, and Naruto started to transform into a dragon. His body grew long and serpentines. His once tan flesh turned midnight black as scales erupted from his once smooth skin. A massive tail erupted from his backside, and from his feet, flame clouds began to hover around them. The tail was always the strangest for Naruto. His zone transformation was weird in general, but the moving the spaced out appendages was the hardest to control. He took an experimental walk on his flame clouds as Aisha and Sabo strapped the loot to his body, securing it with hempen rope before hopping on his back themselves with Luffy in tow. "Alright, Naruto, let's go stash this stuff," Luffy called out as he gripped the ropes, using them to secure himself. "Yeah, let's take the scenic route," Sabo added happily. "We always take the scenic route," Naruto grumbled as he began running and creating cloud footholds. "Don't complain. The scenic route is great," Aisha called out. "That's because you get to relax while I carry you," he called out as he took flight and began to soar higher and higher into the air. All his complaints died as he gained altitude and began to enjoy the freedom the sky offered him. Despite it being a long way, he did indeed take the scenic route. He flew over the Goa Kingdom forests, stirring up numerous flocks of birds that flew around him as he flew over the tops of massive trees. Eventually, he entered the northern Corvo mountain range, where he flew up alongside the peaks of the small mountains where numerous mountain goats were prancing upon the rocky cliff sides. Naruto was about to swoop down on one and take it for a mid-flight snack, but Aisha yanked on his harness. "No snacks, if the goat struggles, we could lose some loot," Aisha grumbled out loud. Naruto frowned but obeyed his older sister as he turned away from the mountains and headed towards the ocean. Luffy had always loved the ocean despite never being a great swimmer. Even before eating his devil fruit, he had always struggled with merely staying afloat. When he had eaten his devil fruit, he thought enjoyment of the ocean would always be beyond his grasp. Now that the sea rejected him, he had never been so wrong about something in his life. Flying nullified whatever weakness he had at not being able to swim. Naruto glided over the surface of the ocean, allowing his bottom claws and tail to dip into the water as he flew over its beautiful blue, reflective surface. Numerous fish jumped out of the water before him, and he managed to catch one in his maw and devoured it greedily. Flying tended to make him hungry. All around him, seagulls and albatrosses flew alongside him as his brothers and sister cried out in joy and excitement. Flying was something that none of them grew bored of, and while Naruto would complain about having to haul everyone on these voyages, he knew that he only enjoyed flying so much because he got to experience it with them. Eventually, they reached their destination. It was a small island made up entirely out of massive rocks where waves beat against its sides, constantly, sending up huge waves of white foam into the air. It was a rock where no ship could safely dock, nor would any ship want to since the giant rock held nothing valuable. That's what made it a fantastic place to stash their loot. Up near the top of the rock was a large flat area big enough for Naruto to land, and from there was a cave, small enough to be hidden from view, but large enough for two grown men to walk alongside each other. Aisha, Luffy and Sabo hopped off Naruto's back and took the treasure bags off of his sides, allowing him to transform back into a human. The four of them made their way into the cave, which was dark, but that was easily solved by a few well-placed blasts of light along the walls, which ignited several well-placed torches. Soon the cave glowed brightly as the light from the torches illuminated chests full of gold, silver, and various other bits of shiny treasure that they had gathered. Aisha and Sabo unloaded the bags with their latest haul of wealth and began to sort it and add it to the various chests around the room while Luffy found a comfortable spot in the corner. A large pile of the very best gold, jewels, and various other valuables was put into a vast and disorganized pile in the said corner. Naruto plopped down on top of the pile and let out a tired sigh. Flying always took a toll on his stamina, and nothing soothed him better than a nap on top of a pile of treasure. After sorting the treasure, Aisha and Luffy caught some fish from the waters outside and promptly cleaned them and put them on skewers which Naruto cooked with his light blast. Soon all four were sitting around the cave talking about their prospective futures. "I'll call my crew the Spade Pirates," Aisha said, her mouth full of cooked fish. "That seems like a good name." "I don't get it," Luffy muttered as he swallowed a fish whole, bones and all. Ever since eating his devil fruit, he could easily digest bones, gaining nutrients from the marrow. He liked it since it made eating meat easier since he could eat it boning. "Why spade? It's like cards," Sabo pointed out as he munched on his fish. "And since your name is based off ace, that would make you the ace of spades." "You got it," Aisha said happily. "Every crew needs a cool name." "Not sure what mine would be," Sabo said as he grew contemplative. "I guess we have years to figure it out. I could try playing up the former noble angle. Something like exiled noble pirates, or bastard pirates, or who am I kidding, those names are terrible." They all shared a laugh at that. It had been a little over half a year ago that Naruto, Aisha and Luffy had learned that Sabo was born a noble. They didn't care, of course, he was their brother, and nothing would change that. So they sat around their cave and dreamed about the future, which was filled with endless possibilities. "Leave them alone," Sabo called out as he was dragged away from his siblings by the thugs his damned father had hired. He couldn't believe they would go through all this trouble just to take him back. Sabo had hoped that between his and Aisha's fighting ability and Naruto's and Luffy's devil fruits, they would be able to fight off any foe, but his parents had gone all out. Surrounding his brothers were the Blue Jam pirates, all armed with swords, pistols, and giant bazookas that could launch a metal ball with a cannon's force. All of them aimed at Naruto as if urging the boy to transform. Sabo saw Naruto was going to transform into a dragon, but with all these guns pointed at him, Sabo wasn't sure if the boy could do it before he was riddled with lead. He couldn't bear to see his brother die before him. "Don't you dare, Naruto," he called out, drawing the boy's attention. "If you do that, I won't forgive you." That seemed to work as he saw his brother back down. "That's enough, Sabo," his father said in a condescending tone. "You will return home immediately, you are my son, and you have to live your life according to your parents who brought you into this world. I won't have these urchins corrupting your mind, they are no doubt just after my fortune." "We could care less about your fortune," Aisha argued. Sabo is our brother. Be silent, trash. His father replied. I won't have you corrupt my son any longer, Blue Jam, get rid of them. Sabo saw the Blue Jam pirates getting ready to execute his father's orders and made a decision. Enough of this. He called out as loud as he could, making his vocal cords ache. I promise to do what you say, Dad, I promise to be a good and noble son, just don't hurt Aisha, Naruto and Luffy. He pleaded, he could sacrifice his dreams if it meant his family could live. He heard his family protesting, but he ignored them and focused on his father. The man seemed to consider his words and nodded. Very well, son, I'll let the urchins scurry back into the trash and live like the vermin they are. But should you ever run away again or disobey me, I'll have Blue Jam remove them permanently. Understood? Sabo nodded as he continued to ignore his brother's protests. His happiness didn't matter so long as his siblings were safe. Maybe they could go out to sea and complete his dream for him while he stayed. Stay and play noble for the rest of his life. Silent tears began rolling down his face as he and his father walked back to High Town. Maybe, just maybe the others can forgive him. Naruto watched as the environment around him turned into a hellscape, piles of trash burned and the flames reached up high into the sky. He found it quite pleasant, the smoke made the air nice to breathe and the heat made him feel nice and toasty. His brother and sister, on the other hand, was on their knees, sweating and coughing. After Sabo got taken away, they had been forced by Blue Jam to place boxes all over the gray terminal, which turned out to be ignitions for setting the terminal alight and burning away all the trash and people living there. Blue Jam had expected to be rewarded for his efforts by being made a nobleman. Only for him to be betrayed and left to burn like everyone else. You promised to make me a noble. Blue Jam cried out as he wailed and smacked the gates, desperation evident in his voice as he clawed at the massive gates that led into the Goa Kingdom. Aisha and Naruto could only shake their heads and make their escape as Naruto turned into a dragon and she and Luffy hopped onto his back. As Naruto prepared to take flight, Blue Jam and his men came running up to them. Wait, don't let us burn. We can. Naruto took flight, not even bothering to acknowledge the pitiful pirate. Aisha, on the other hand, wasn't of the same mind. Have fun burning, it'll be a nice warm-up for when you go to hell. His older sister called out as they took to the sky. Enjoy your eternal reward, courtesy of the Goa nobles and your own stupidity. They ignored the pirates' cries and left the pitiful men in the gray terminal to burn. They were both tired, but they made an effort to help the people around them. Aisha and Luffy warned people who weren't aware of what was happening and they even managed to save a few people here and there, but soon they made their way home to Dayton, who was outside of her house with some of her men. Luffy and Aisha explained what they knew, that the nobility had hired Blue Jam and his pirates to set fire to the Great Terminal. There was nothing that could be done except hope for the best. Aisha watched as Naruto practiced his hybrid transformation. It was only yesterday that the Great Terminal had burned and life had returned to something resembling normal, albeit normal without their brother Sabo. It had been hard to accept Sabo leaving. It had been evident that Sabo had been trying to protect them, even so, Aisha couldn't help but wonder if the boy was happy. Being born into nobility and living in the Goa Kingdom's noble district had its perks. Perhaps their brother could be happy there. Ace watched as Naruto transformed his right arm into a scaled draconic one with 5 razor-sharp claws, but the arm was much too big for the boy's young body and he fell onto his side, weighed down by the muscular scaled appendage. This is why you've never beaten me in a fight when using that form. Aisha pointed out as he watched her brother crush struggle. You need to learn to control your transformation better or grow your normal body bigger for it. You could try encouraging me, you know. Naruto grumbled as he reverted his arm to normal. Sabo would have encouraged me. Naruto paused. Do you think he's happy? Luffy asked. Aisha scoffed. It doesn't matter anymore, he's made a choice. He is also rich and he was cut off by the sounds of Dagra, Aiden's lieutenant bandit, breaking into the clearing. Sabo was killed. Dagra called out as he came up to Aisha, Naruto and Luffy, joined by Dayton and several other bandits who came out of their home to see the commotion. The visiting world noble shot him in the harbor. Aisha moved without thinking and pinned Dagra down. What the hell are you saying? There was no way Sabo could be dead, he was safe in the noble district with his family. You're lying, Sabo is with his family. He chose to go back to them and live his life as a noble. I'm not lying. Dagra proclaimed as Ace was pulled off of the man by several other bandits. I thought I might have been hallucinating or dreaming, I doubted my eyes for the longest time, but it was real. Sabo set out with a small boat and flew a Jolly Roger, but he got in the way of the world noble's ship and was killed by the noble. Aisha couldn't stop the tears from falling as she realized what a fool they had been. I knew he wouldn't be happy. He sacrificed himself for us and now those bastards killed him. She reached over to where her trusty pipe was and grabbed it, intent on avenging her brother. She only managed to take several steps before she was pushed face-first into the ground and the great weight of Curly Dayton was holding him down. You aren't going anywhere, you dumb brat. The large woman shouted as she pushed him down. Get off me. I'm going to avenge Sabo, Aisha declared as she struggled against her foster mother's grasp. Always acting so damn tough even though you're just a brat. Dayton declared as she held her down. All that would happen is that you would get killed, and the next day the world will have forgotten about you. Who do you think killed Sabo? It was this country. This world. Do you think you can do a damn thing about it? Your father died, bringing in a new age. I won't have you running off until you can do the same. Aisha cried as she realized she was right. This entire world had killed Sabo. The whole kingdom was set up to create misery and death. She was weaker than his piece of shit father. There was nothing she could do. Sabo. Aisha and everyone else turned to Naruto, who was on his knees, staring at the ground in absolute sorrow next to Luffy, who was also a crying mess right now. Sabo. Cried out Luffy. They killed Sabo, Naruto said, his voice barely above a whisper but clear enough for everyone to hear him. The world noble, the nobles, this kingdom, this world killed him. Naruto yelled, echoing Dayton's words. His limbs thrashed wildly as his body began to shift. Naruto began to transform, but this was unlike any transformation Aisha had ever seen her brother go through before. When Naruto turned into a full dragon, his body was the size of a large horse with a massive serpentine tail. However, this time his black form just grew and grew until he was larger than the house that Dayton and her bandits lived in. He was so large that Aisha wasn't sure how big he was. He towered over all of them. Each of the scales on her brother's draconic form was bigger than his body. Her brother's scales were each a shield, his teeth were swords, his claws were like spears. His body was large enough to eclipse them all in shadow. His tail was larger and more prolonged than a sea serpent, and his maw was big enough to swallow a ship. Aisha had read about devil fruits in as many books as she could steal from the Goa Kingdom's libraries. Zone-type fruit transformations were proportional to their users. Naruto's dragon form had only been as big as a horse because the boy was only 8 years old and his human body was small, so his dragon body was proportionally small. However, she read that his own fruit user could overcome this weakness by awakening a devil fruit, which allowed them to expand their transformation to make it many times more big with very little to limit them. You've awakened it, she whispered. They will burn. Naruto proclaimed with a roar as he took flight, an act which scared everyone as flame clouds the size of boulders were created. The dragon left, leaving everyone lying on the ground in shocked silence. Naruto-kun was all Aisha managed to say as she watched a large shadow that flew through the sky towards the Goa Kingdom. Suddenly something dropped next to him. It was Naruto's saber, the one he claimed his role model Shanks had given him. He had seen the boy use it to protect her on numerous occasions. She immediately picked herself up and grabbed the blade. With Dayton having been knocked away by the winds caused by the dragon flying off, she was free to sprint as quickly as her legs could manage towards the Goa Kingdom. I've already lost one brother, I'm not going to lose you as well. Naruto, or rather the beast that had once been Naruto, flew through Dawn Island sky, its massive body propelled through the air by the colossal wingspan that blocked out the sky from anyone underneath it. Little of the boy Naruto remained, replaced with rage, hatred, and agony from Sabo's death. All that remained was a beast that thirsted for revenge. The dragon within had awakened and would destroy everyone and everything that caused it such pain. Pain, agony, that is all you have brought upon me. The dragon roared as its shadow eclipsed the land beneath it. This island heaves with my torment. The wretched Goa Kingdom will quake beneath my rage, and this whole kingdom and all its nobility will burn beneath the shadow of my form. The monster's eyes saw the Goa Kingdom ahead. Its gaze fell upon the noble district also known as High Town. Even from here, he could hear and see the celebrating in the streets as the nobility celebrated the arrival of the world noble. The dragon swooped down, its eyes set squarely upon the center of all the celebration. The royal palace that sat right in the middle of High Town. Sari Nanticanet checked over herself for what must have been the 100th time today to make sure she was perfect. Her servants had spent weeks sewing the dress she was wearing using the best cloth of gold money could buy. She had to make an impression upon Saint Jalmak, the world noble who was gracing them with his presence on this day. At the age of 10, not much was expected of her, since most responsibilities of her family fell upon her older brother the crown prince, but if she made a good impression, perhaps the world noble might invite her and her family to attend him at Mary Goi's, where she might catch the eye of a young world noble. As her parents' eldest daughter, all this responsibility fell onto her, and she would not disappoint. She watched with excitement as the celestial dragon, one of the creators of this world, walked up to the king and queen, her father and mother, who bowed down and greeted him in front of their royal palace. The world noble had a horde of guards all wearing thick plate armor like knights out of the storybooks her servants read her. It was like a fairy tale come to life. We welcome you, Saint Jalmak. Her father stated as he bowed as low as his body could manage, her mother and brother doing the same. The Goa Kingdom and all within it are here to serve you. We thank you for the great honor of being able to host you. You grace us with your presence. I hope our humble kingdom is to your satisfaction. It is the cleanest kingdom I've visited since I came down from the Holy Land to see how you humans live. Saint Jalmak said simply. Clean and proper. I hope the rest of my stay is similarly as pleasant. The compliment was met with great happiness by all present. Sari was glad that they had burned away the trash and filth the last night, cleansing this kingdom of the vermin that infested it. Before she or anyone else could say anything else, a massive roar echoed through the courtyard and indeed through the entirety of High Town. The crowds of people who were deemed noble enough to be here in the presence of the celestial dragon were looking about, wondering where the noise had come from. What was that noise? Jalmak asked as he gazed up at the sky, where most seemed to think the noise had come from. His bodyguards all drew their weapons as they gazed at the sky, looking for anything that might threaten the noble under their protection. No clue, perhaps the heavens themselves are thankful to be in your presence. Her father offered weakly, trying to salvage the situation and make things go by smoothly. It seemed to work as the world noble smiled at the compliment. Indeed, shall we go into your humble palace? I assume you've prepared a feast suitable for one such as me. Of course. The king declared. The chefs have worked tirelessly for a week too. Once again, a roar echoed out through the noble district, this time so loud that the beautiful stained glass windows that lined her family's palace shattered, causing shards of glass to fall upon the crowds of people who tried to avoid the rainbow of projectiles as they fell like deadly rain. Before anyone could protest or ask what had happened, the entire noble district fell into darkness. It was as if the sun had disappeared, which should have been impossible since it was noon. Sari and everyone else looked up to the sky and could only watch in horror as a massive black shadow fell upon them. An entire procession of nobility who had been standing to the side in the large crowd of onlookers was crushed as a massive object fell into the courtyard. Rock and rubble flew into the sky along with the bodies of those who had been caught in the shockwave of whatever had landed. Sari herself had to grab onto her mother's leg to avoid being blasted away. Once the smoke cleared, what Sari saw struck her with fear. Hundreds of people had been crushed as a massive black creature had landed in the center of High Town. It was a dragon straight from her storybooks, its black scales drinking in the midday sun, and its very presence seemed to darken all of High Town. Its long serpentine tail used to cause misery swayed behind it, crushing buildings and sending people flying. Sari wasn't sure exactly how big it was, but she had to look up as far as her head could allow to see its face. Its head was as large as the royal carriage that ferried her and her family through the street so that they wouldn't have to be gazed upon by the common folk. Its neck was as long as a castle tower, and its sleek black body was like a battleship in terms of size. Its tail's length was beyond her comprehension as it swayed side to side, striking down buildings and people as it moved. It had 4 short, sleek appendages with dexterous claws that it used to balance its massive body that seemed to block out the sky. Where is the world noble? The creature roared as it raised its head and let out a gout of light into the air. The light itself was bright white, causing whatever it touched to catch fire and immediately spread throughout the district. People were spared either as several who were unlucky enough to get hit with the light died a fiery death, and no matter what they did to try to snuff it out, the fire only spread. Sari watched as the armored knight bodyguards of Saint Jalmak surrounded the celestial dragon as they pointed their swords and spears at the massive creature. The world noble in the white suit that covered him stood tall, seemingly not intimidated by the serpent before him. I am Saint Jalmak, a celestial dragon. Jalmak called out proudly. I order you to surrender, creature. I am one of the creators of this world, you will bow before me and submit. All lesser creatures must bow before this world's saviors and creators. The dragon's gaze fell upon the world noble, and his hundreds of bodyguards aimed their spears, rifles, swords, and bazookas at the beast. Sari thought it something out of a fairy tale, as the world noble, a saint and living god, would strike down the creature. Kill this hideous creature that refuses to submit to me. Jalmak ordered as all his men opened fire with their ranged weapons, while others charged forth with swords or spears. All around her, the other nobles were running for their lives. Her parents were cowering next to her, frozen with fear. But Sari felt no fear and only excitement as she watched real knights fight a dragon. The rifles and bazookas did nothing to the creature and seemed to bounce off its black scales. Harmlessly, the knights below attacked with swords and spears, which also did nothing as none could pierce the creature's hide. Sari's wonder turned to horror as the beast ignored the valiant knights and began to approach the world noble. Its large clawed arms were crushing and impaling the knights that it walked over as it approached its prey, its glowing red eyes filled with hatred and hunger. Die foul beast, Jalmak ordered as he used his own bazooka-like rifle, but its shots did nothing to the approaching black monster. I am a god. No one can defy me, all this world bows to the world's nobility. It was you who killed my brother, wasn't it? The dragon roared as it lunged forward and opened its massive maw filled with teeth the size of giant swords. The world noble was consumed in an instant, his pressurized armored suit popping and letting out a hissing noise as its personal atmosphere leaking out as he was ripped apart by the dragon's massive jaws. The dragon spat out the bloody remains of Saint Jalmak before turning to his remaining retainers and the nobles who still remained. You're the reason Sabo is dead. The dragon shouted as it unleashed stream after stream of black flame throughout High Town. It was only now that Sari felt dread fill her heart. It wasn't supposed to be like this in storybooks. A hero and his knights slew evil dragons and saved princesses like her. But as she looked around, all the knights were burning, and the world noble. The highest figure in the world was a red smear on the ground, not even recognizable as having been a person. Help, I'm on fire. The gates are burning. There's no escape. All of Hightown is on fire. My servants have abandoned me. My leg. The fire is spreading to the palace. Sari turned around and saw that the royal palace, which had stood for centuries and had been her home her entire life, began to be engulfed in black fire. She didn't know how it was possible. The palace was made out of stone, but somehow the fire spread across the stonework and the palace began to melt like a candle would when exposed to flame. She turned and saw that her father and mother were gone. She had no clue where they were, and all the people around her were running back and forth trying to escape the flames. The air grew heavy with smoke as she struggled to breathe. Why? Sari asked no one. Why was this happening? They were nobles, the best of society as decreed by birth. Why were they being burned the same way those vermin who dwelled in the Great Terminal had been burned? We're nobles, the rightful rulers. Why are we being treated the same as that subhuman filth? After a while, the dragon simply began to smash things with its long tail, and Sari could only watch as all of the high town began to crumble beneath its wrath. Rubble and debris were flying everywhere. Suddenly icy frost spread across Sari's face as the left half of her face was engulfed in black flame. She had never felt such pain before, her parents had never struck her, and her servants made sure that she did nothing that could harm her fair features. She tried to put out the dark flame. Tears fell from her face as she tried to stop the searing pain that engulfed her, but nothing seemed to work. She fell to the ground as the air grew as hot as an oven, and darkness overtook her. Aisha walked up to the Goa Kingdom's outer gate that granted access to Edge Town, where the common people of Goa lived, merchants, tradespeople, and other people who had enough wealth to dwell within the walls, but weren't of noble blood. The gates were blackened and melted, and smoke filled the air. As he ran towards the Goa Kingdom, he had seen numerous refugees running from it, all residents of Edge Town who claimed that fire had spread from High Town over to Edge Town and that the nobility of the kingdom had perished in a fire brought by a shadowy monster that fell from the sky. As Aisha approached the Goa Kingdom, she had seen smoke akin to the burning of the Great Terminal, but much more plentiful and full-smelling, which made him increase her pace. She ran through Edge Town's ruins, which still had buildings on fire. It was challenging to breathe as smoke filled the air and clouded his vision and made her tear up. It was a good thing she was familiar with these streets and knew the back alleys like the back of her hand as she was able to navigate her way over to High Town. She got to the inner gate and saw at once that things were worse than she could have imagined. The arrival of the world noble meant that no one who wasn't a noble or servant of a noble was allowed within the High Town, so the gates had been shut to all commoners. All the gates being shut meant that commoners couldn't get in. It also meant the nobility couldn't get out. She saw the results immediately. The metal bars of the gate were black and scorched, the metal twisted as it had melted from the extreme heat, and behind those bars were the bodies and blackened bones of numerous people who had tried to escape, only to find no way out as they burned to death. She wondered why they hadn't opened the gates, but she looked over and saw all the gates' mechanisms had melted from the extreme heat. Naruto Kanesha found himself muttering, what had her brother done? Naruto was so kind, but his wrath was terrible when he turned into a dragon. She shook those thoughts from her head, none of that mattered. All that mattered was getting her brother. She found one place where the metal had been melted in such a way that her small body could fit under the gate and she ran into High Town. What greeted her was utter devastation. Barely a building was left standing except for the royal palace, which was no longer a palace but a melted mess, as the stone that had once held it up had seemingly melted, making it look like a melted candle or a badly made birthday cake. All around her were dead bodies in various states, most were little more than blackened skeletons. After searching for him in the partially intact structures, she finally found her brother sitting huddled at the bottom of the walkway to the royal palace. He had his knees clutched to his chest and his head staring at the ground. She could see the boy was crying. Naruto. Aisha cried out in joy as he ran towards her little brother and embraced him. The boy hugged her back, but that didn't stop the tears flowing freely from his face. Aisha, her brother, croaked weakly. I didn't mean to, you know that, right? I just got so angry, and I know, Naruto. Aisha comforted her brother as best she could. You didn't mean to do this, they killed Sabo, and you just wanted to avenge your brother. But all these people, he sobbed more. Not all of them were bad, right? I just couldn't stop myself. The villagers on my home island were right, I'm a monster. No, you aren't. Aisha pushed Naruto down and looked into her brother's eyes. Would a monster be crying right now? She asked angrily as she gestured towards her brother's tears. Monsters don't cry. Monsters don't feel bad about people they've killed. These people were the monsters. She gestured towards the charred bodies around them. They killed Sabo, they burned people alive in the Great Terminal, and didn't give a damn about it. All that death so that they could impress a world noble. That's what a monster is, a person who feels and cares nothing about the suffering of others. You're not a monster, Naruto, only a good-hearted person. Would feel bad about the deaths of scum like this. You are a good person, Naruto. She hoped repeating that statement would be enough to convince her brother it was true. I am? Her brother asked, tears still flowing. Of course. Aisha soothed, her voice growing softer. I'm your big sister. Have I ever been wrong? I guess not. Naruto's grip and body grew slack as he rested his head into Aisha's embrace. I'm tired. She felt him go limp as his body gave out. She used his strength to pick her brother up and lift him over her shoulder. She turned around and saw a cloaked figure standing in her path. The figure was blocking her only way out of these ruins. She gripped the saber he always carried with one hand and held her brother over his shoulder with the other. She considered that she might have to fight her way out of here. All this death and destruction. The cloaked figure stated as it looked around at the ruins of High Town. The power to change the world, both for better and for worse. What do you want? Aisha growled as she prepared to protect her unconscious brother. Are you going to stop us from leaving? Depends. The figure responded casually as it looked around at the devastation. What do you plan on doing once you leave this place? Finding a place to hide my little brother. She stated, not willing to share more. Brother? The figure asked curiously. The boy isn't of your blood. That statement only made Aisha angry. Blood doesn't matter. She gripped his saber and pointed it towards the strange man. We shared drinks, that makes him my brother, and I will kill anyone who tries to take him. Blood doesn't matter, the stranger man muttered. I agree and disagree with that statement, but more importantly, you don't need to hide him, although you should take him far away from here. Otherwise, people might start connecting the dots. That statement confused Aisha. What do you mean? Stories will spread, people will learn about what my brother did and come after him. No, they won't. The man replied calmly. Tomorrow, all the newspapers of the world will declare that a dragon destroyed this kingdom and slew a world noble, but it will be a dragon of a different sort that they will blame. The figure took off his hood, revealing the face of a strange man, half his face covered in tattoos. I will claim responsibility for this chaos. All those who witnessed the dragon firsthand are dead. Any survivors will have their stories dismissed outright as being too outlandish. The world government will need someone to blame, they always do. I will be that someone. A child as young as him shouldn't be on the run from the government at such a young age. Aisha didn't understand why this stranger was doing this. Who are you, and why do you care? I'm just a man seeking out the strength to change this world. The man chuckled as he answered. It's the least I can do for him, all things considered. He pointed at the gate. Take him and run, when next you see Garp. Tell him about what happened here and tell him that Monkey D. Dragon will take the blame. Monkey D. Aisha didn't understand, but she nodded and ran off with Naruto and looked back at the figure only for him to be completely gone without a trace. Naruto sat in Dayton's house as he thought about what had happened earlier. He could only remember bits and pieces, but he remembered being angry, angrier than he had ever felt before. He recalled seeing white light, black fire consuming everything, the sounds of screams, then waking up in High Town surrounded by dead bodies where he waited until his sister came and got him. Aisha had explained everything to Luffy, Dayton and the others. In contrast, Luffy had simply been happy Naruto was alive and had hugged him. All the mountain bandits had kept a safe distance from him, although they had expressed happiness at him being alive. Naruto sat in the corner of the house, looking at his hands while his sister tried to soothe him, telling him that he did nothing wrong. You didn't mean to do it, Naruto. Aisha assured him for what seemed like the 100th time. Besides, they all approved of the burning of the Great Terminal. They would have killed you without a second thought just because you weren't a noble. Remember what Sabo's dad did? How he was ready to have Blue Jam kill us. We aren't even human to them. Aisha, Naruto muttered as he looked at his sister. Before Shanks brought me here, everyone in my home village called me a demon. They told me I killed their loved ones and innocent newborns. At first I didn't believe their words, but now I understand. They were telling me the truth. I am a monster, he said. Everyone was in shock at what he told them. Aiden, as vicious as a mountain bandit could be, wouldn't dare say such things to child. Aisha thought those people were scum and began to sympathize with him. Luffy wanted to beat up the mean people Naruto talked about. You aren't. Aisha stated loudly. I keep telling you, you don't have to feel bad about it. That's the thing, Naruto said calmly. I know what I did was bad, but I feel perfectly calm. He had felt panicked at the time, but now he was perfectly calm as if it was just another ordinary day. It was as if the grief and anger had already passed. That's good, is it? Naruto wondered why it was that he was so calm about all this. It had to be his devil fruit. Ever since eating it, he had changed. He never cried anymore when he was sad. Even when Sabo had left, he hadn't cried. Instead, whenever he felt grief, it was quickly replaced by anger. What if I stop caring about you? About everyone? I shouldn't be this calm. I killed people, hundreds perhaps thousands, and I feel. It was hard to describe how he felt. He knew what he did was terrible, he knew that he shouldn't have done it, but the grief that had consumed him when he woke up from his rampage had passed. Am I a dragon or a human? He asked himself and everyone in the room. You're my brother. Aisha answered finally. And that's all I care about. Luffy nodded too, and Naruto hoped that he would never make Aisha regret saying that. Garp watched his adopted granddaughter and adopted grandson spar in a field outside of Fuchsia village. He paid close attention to Naruto, who had sprouted a long black tail from his lower back and utilized it in the fight by using it to strike at Aisha, while his normal human limbs played defense. So much had happened in the last few months that Garp wasn't sure what to do. He was considering retiring from the Marines entirely with how chaotic things were getting. His grandson lost control and killed a world noble and damn near every noble in the Goa Kingdom's high town. Garp hated the world nobles. It was the main reason he refused to become an admiral, since admirals were at the beck and call of those useless piles of filth. While he wasn't sad that one had died or that Goa's nobles had died, he felt terrible about the innocents who got caught in the crossfire. There was also the fact that his grandson did it after losing control of his devil fruit. He knew Naruto was guilty, but he couldn't bring himself to blame the boy. Perhaps it was paternal instincts that blinded him, but he didn't care. He would keep his grandson's secret and take it with him to the grave. Children shouldn't be held responsible for things beyond their control. And from what he had heard and seen himself, Naruto wasn't in control of himself. If anything, he was at fault for allowing a child with such a dangerous power to live in a place like the Goa Kingdom. If anyone should be punished, it was him for his terrible parenting, Aiden for not watching the boys, and that damned retired Shanks for letting a child eat a devil fruit. The incident made him double down on training the boy to control his new power. His own devil fruits were tricky, and the carnivorous ones were hard to control, especially for a boy as young as Naruto. Even his longtime friend Sengoku, who had a reasonably calm devil fruit, claimed it was hard for him to control it. It was all too easy for him to go on a rampage during combat, and he was a well-trained man. Garp once again cursed Shanks for allowing his grandson to eat such a dangerous fruit. He had no choice now but to use as much spare time as he could get to train the boy to use the power of his fruit responsibly. He would be training his grandson in the Rakushiki, the 6 powers to best make use of his hybrid form so that he didn't have to turn into a full dragon since the boy has difficulty with complete transformations. The last thing he wanted was for his grandson to turn into Rob Lucci. He had to train the boy carefully. But he had such little free time. The destruction of the Goa Kingdom sent shockwaves throughout the world. One of the greatest kingdoms in what was considered the safest of the world's oceans was destroyed by the Revolutionary Army, or so the news claimed. He was glad his son took the blame for the Goa Kingdom's destruction so that Naruto might be spared. Already the world government was doing its best to assuage the people's fears. He didn't even want to think about what this year's reverie would be like, although he had heard some rumors floating down from the top brass of the Marines. The word was that they planned on expanding the 7 warlord system, giving pardons out to more powerful pirates to increase the world government military power. Some said it would be the 9 warlord system. Garp wasn't sure how he felt about that. He also heard that the Marines would be offering more significant incentives for bounty hunters and handing out privateering licenses much more liberally. Both options made him wince. He didn't much care for bounty hunters or privateers any more than he liked the 7 warlords of the sea. He watched as Aisha smacked down Naruto, making it another victory for the older girl. Garp could only let out a tired sigh. Whatever changes the world goes through, I need to make sure these kids are ready for them. He walked over to Naruto, who was picking himself up. You've gotten better with your hybrid transformation, now let's see the full thing. Naruto looked at the ground. I don't want to, not after. Garp sighed. Look, it's better for you to train to be able to control it. If you shut yourself off from it, then you will lose control the next time you lose your temper. Now transform, if anything happens, I'll be here to stop you with my fists. That seemed to convince his grandson, who began to transform. His skin turned black and body expanded until he was a dragon. However, the boy was only slightly bigger than the last time Garp had seen him transform, with his main body being only the size of a horse minus the neck and tail. I want the full transformation. Garp argued. Aisha here said you were as large as a castle tower and that your wings caused hurricanes. I can't. Naruto pouted in his draconic form. This is as big as I can go. But he only turned so big because of stress. Was it a temporary devil fruit awakening? Garp didn't know much about devil fruits, so all he could do was shake his head. Fine, let's train in that form. For now, first things first, endurance. You're going to let me hop on top of you and fly me around this island 100 times. All you want is for me to give you a free ride. It's endurance training. Garp complained as he hopped onto Naruto's back, the boy barely managing to support the massive man's weight. Now hurry up, I want to fly. Naruto managed to take off with great difficulty, and soon grandfather and grandson were flying around the island. Garp raised his hands up in the air like a child having the time of his life. Do a barrel roll. Garp called out as he enjoyed the feeling of flying. I knew this was just for your own enjoyment. Don't talk back to your grandfather while he's training you. Garp argued. Now go faster and fly through those clouds. I've always wanted to taste clouds. 9 years later, Luffy and Naruto let out the sails of their recently purchased boats as they bid goodbye to the people of Fuchsia village. The day had finally come where he set out a pirate in earnest. 3 years ago Aisha had set out. Luffy and Naruto. Makino called out. Good luck. Don't become too much of a criminal. Mayor Whoop Slap added. I don't want you to ruin this town's reputation. Numerous others chimed in as they bid him goodbye, and they could only wave back and thank them for their hospitality as they set sail out to sea. Once they was far away, Naruto shifted his sail to the side, intent on going west. While he was sailing smoothly along the coast, he decided to take stock of himself. He wore an unbuttoned black shirt with the sleeves reaching just before the wrist, revealing his impressive physique. On his lower body were a pair of black leather sandals and orange shorts. He had a purple sash which held his saber ace that Shanks had given him 10 years ago. Hovering his head was a black headband which Aisha had given him as a parting gift when she set out. Let's see, Naruto muttered as he thought about what he should do first. I need a good crew, a big one that will put Shanks to shame, but first, I should get a proper ship. He had enough money to buy a good one. Aisha had only taken a small share of the treasure that they had gathered in their childhood, which meant he had a cave full of treasure. However, he disliked the idea of spending so much money. He hated parting with treasure, although he knew he had to eventually. He had turned into a frugal individual who hated wasting good money. He still had a decent amount of treasure in his cave, although that amount had dwindled a bit in these last 9 years. Luffy had to give a decent amount to Makino to pay for his debts, with her always giving him food, and he made a point to buy a lot of things in Fuchsia village to help support the economy. On Island wasn't what it used to be. Ever since the Goa Kingdom incident nearly 10 years ago, times had been challenging for the common man as the entire region's economy shifted due to a complete removal of the upper class. As if reality read his mind, his boat was sailing across from the part of the island that held the Goa Kingdom. He could see numerous ships docked at the massive stone docks from his boat, where the nobility used to moor their large vessels. Now it mainly was fishing boats and trading ships picking up produce and numerous other agriculture. At small villages like Fuchsia grew on the island substantial farmland. Edge Town had been rebuilt, and those who once dwelled in the Grey Terminal now lived there, while those who had lived in Edge Town took up residence in High Town as a new upper class, albeit one that didn't consider themselves as nobility. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Naruto found himself thinking. He wasn't sure if he was happy or sad about it. He barely remembered that day's events when he had gone on a rampage, but he promised himself he would never do it again. He had spent the last decade training himself to control his devil fruit powers and his own body so that he would never lose control in such a way again. I'm a man, not a monster. He found himself thinking as his small ship drifted further away from the Goa Kingdom and out towards the open sea. Suddenly the water in front of his boat began to bubble and a massive sea serpent rose from the ocean, its giant maw open, intent on swallowing him. So it's the Lord of the Coast? He asked as he gazed upon the beast as it approached him. The black flame coated his fist as he shouted. Dark Demolition Fist. Naruto leaped from his boat and delivered a darkness-imbued fist into the Sea King, blowing a hole through its head. The giant fish's body sunk into the sea, staining it red until it was out of sight. That should make things safer for the fishermen around here. Now back to my adventure. Naruto smiled as he allowed himself to relax. He pulled out his compass and contemplated where he wanted to go next. He looked at his ship and found it relatively small despite being of decent size. If he wanted a crew, he needed a proper boat for them to stay on. He didn't want to buy one, which meant he needed to steal one like a real pirate. However, he didn't want the Marines after him until he was ready to be a pirate in earnest with a crew. Which meant he needed to steal a ship from someone who couldn't go to the authorities, which meant he had to steal from another pirate. But first, I need more than one person to help man the ship. It's gonna be tough to find strong people in the weakest sea, he said as his ship sailed off into the distance. Within the Onsebasiling town, the lone living citizen awoke from his slumber. Rubbing his eyes, the orange-haired teen pulled himself out of bed and made his way downstairs while grabbing his blade on the way and passing 2 empty rooms. His home was small, the common areas being downstairs and the residence rooms being upstairs. A small clinic could also be found downstairs that was fully equipped for minor injuries, but no major surgeries, or it would be, but it seemed that the teen had used a lot of the supplies. The kitchen was in a similar state with most of the perishable foods being eaten, leaving canned foods for the teen's breakfast. He opened a can of cold beans, not bothering to heat the contents as he had other things to worry about that day, and hastily downed the slop while shuddering. After having his delicious breakfast, the teen went outside to his backyard with a solemn frown set on his face, looking out to the vast expanse he'd created so long ago. The home's backyard had been opened up by the teen. Remnants of the fence that the neighborhood used to separate the homes could be seen. The reason for the renovation: a vast number of graves that were shoddily made, with most having headstones made from the bark of trees and names carved into them, along with mounds of dirt heaped in front of each one. A mass gravesite, all created by the Orange Head, but for what purpose? He walked to the first row of graves and knelt in front of a specific tree that did not yet have mounds. These 3 graves still had holes in front of them yet to be filled with anything, and further back, almost out of eyesight, was another empty grave. The teen closed his eyes, his sword stabbed into the ground, standing next to him while he was in his thoughts. Thinking back on the long road that led him here and how close he was to being finished. Just a few more and I'll be done. And I can avenge you all. The teen opened his eyes, got up, and pulled his sword from the ground, placing the great blade on his back using a red cord while its bandages wrapped around it as a sheath. He smirked and looked up to the sky. The cloud that had been obscuring the sun moved to cause its bright rays to shine onto the island. Psyching himself up, the teen went back into his home and grabbed his book of names, putting it into the robes he wore and exited his home. Time to go hunting. The teen took to the rooftops, heading towards the city. Out at sea, Naruto had his feet kicked up on his dinghy, relaxing since his departure from Fuchsia village. The blonde pirate yawned, kicking his feet in boredom while watching seagulls overhead. Man, 2 days of nothing. I thought that being a pirate was supposed to be constant adventure. I haven't even seen an island yet. Naruto stood up and shouted to the heavens. The seagulls looked down to see the commotion, but ultimately ignored the odd human. What I wouldn't give for an island, or at least someone to talk to. I gotta find crewmates to share adventures with. After all, it's no fun if I'm by myself. Naruto sighed, plopping back down onto the ship and rocking it slightly. As if fate was answering his prayers, a small boat knocked into something which the grumbling blonde failed to notice in his anguish. Cracking his eye open, Naruto was met with a big gate that, from what he could see, was surrounding an island. An island? He broke out into a grin at the great find, completely ignoring the fact that the gate had the symbols of the Marines and the world government as a clear sign that the 2 powers considered the island dangerous. Finally, an island. Naruto looked up, seeing the top of the gate. But what's with the gate? How's anyone supposed to get in unless this place is so dangerous they have to keep everyone out? Naruto oddly deduced. That means adventure. And if this place is dangerous, then there might be strong people that could join my crew. Naruto pumped his fists at his amazing detective work before he started to stretch his legs and giving small hops on the boat. Then it settled. Time to find myself a crewmate. Naruto boosted himself to the top of the gate and perched himself on one of the posts. Placing a hand above his eyes, Naruto made an O with his mouth in amazement while sweeping his view across the horizon. Naruto took in the view of Karakura town, not that he knew its name. His eyes shone in amazement as he took in the sight of the first new place he'd visited since leaving his island. Whoa, this place looks great. I bet a lot of people live here. It's the biggest village I've ever seen. Naruto laughed before he jumped from his perch onto the island with an audible boom. Hey. Anyone here wanna come be a pirate with me? Naruto yelled, only to be met with silence. It's more fun than you think. I promise. More silence. Naruto scratched his head in confusion at the lack of reaction to his loud announcement, tilting his head when there wasn't so much as a peep from any living thing. Where is everyone? Naruto wondered aloud, walking into the town. While walking in the middle of the street, Naruto took notice of the different shops, all of them empty. The businesses were devoid of anyone and looked to have been emptied in a hurry as, in some, the goods were scattered onto the ground and some had their buildings wrecked as if an explosive had gone off inside. When the blonde went to check food shops, most of the food had either been spoiled or ransacked for non-perishables. No one's around, maybe I scared them off when I jumped in. Naruto cupped his chin. Looks like I picked a boring island to stop at. Above the blonde, the orange-haired teen leaped from one of the roofs, intending on attacking the perceived threat to his island. Bringing his blade overhead, he planned to cut the intruder in 2 down the middle, so it came as a shock to him when said intruder stopped his sword by catching its tip between his now scaly hands. Is that any way to treat a guest? Naruto grit his teeth, slightly struggling to hold the sword away from his forehead. There aren't any guests here, especially some weird suspicious guy like you. The island's been declared off limits. Ichigo, also gritting his teeth, struggled against the blonde. Oh, the gate I jumped at, Naruto answered simply. Then you'll have no problem jumping back over. But I just got here. Naruto whined. You don't get to tell me what to do. He added. TCH, how old are you? Ichigo yelled back, showing his immaturity. Unable to overpower each other, the two got ready to disengage. Too bad for Ichigo. Naruto got the idea first. The blonde shoved the sword to the side, taking its wielder with it as he fell forward. Naruto took this opening, whirled around, and delivered a back kick, aiming for Ichigo's stomach, only for the orange swordsman to deftly right himself and bring the flat of his blade in front of him and block the kick. Narrowing his eyes, Naruto pushed off the blade to make distance between them. Gathering wind around him, Naruto unsheathed ace and coated it in darkness, going for a vertical arc slash. Dark cloak slash. Ichigo skidded to a stop and saw the intruder slash the air with a saber in front of him, making the swordsman notice the dark projectile shooting toward him. Realizing what was heading his way, Ichigo took his sword and batted the attack to the side, flinging it into a building and causing an explosion of debris which obscured Ichigo from Naruto's view. The blonde waited, his intense gaze focused on the dust cloud. Soon the unknown swordsman burst from the dust with his sword at his side, readying for a slash to the blonde's midsection. Once he'd made it to the blonde, Ichigo swung the mighty blade, but did not feel the distinct resistance of human flesh. Looking down, Ichigo saw the pirate had blocked the slash. With no hesitation, Ichigo maneuvered his sword with its point directed at Naruto's chest and stabbed. From his position, Naruto flipped backward and used his heel to kick the blade away, and while staying in a handstand brought his other heel around to kick Ichigo in the ribs. The orange swordsman ground his teeth in pain, but not from a kick to the ribs, rather a kick to his bicep as he'd raised it to block the blonde's attack. But that block, Ichigo had also used the opening to wrap the bandages of his blade around Naruto's leg, ensnaring him before using his strength to pull the blonde from the ground. Naruto was surprised when he was yanked into the air and swung around by the swordsman, the force put into the swing making it difficult for the blonde to attempt to counter. Before long, Ichigo swung the pirate into a building and retracted the bandage, rushing into the cloud that was kicked up to press the attack. As Naruto pulled himself up, rubbing his head in pain, he saw his opponent through the dust ready to bring his sword down on the dazed blonde. Reacting quickly, Naruto brought Ace up with and managed to block the sword, for the most part, as the blade did manage to leave a small cut on him despite the defense. Ichigo, well shocked, paid the unexpected move little mind as he withdrew the blade from an overhead slash and decided to bring its back end into the blonde's ribs. Naruto, instead of focusing on the impending attack, chose to use some light for a point-blank blast. Bright bullet. Both attacks struck their intended targets, marking the first major hit scored on their opponent. Naruto had blood fly from his mouth, the giant knife's blunt side bashed into his midsection, cracking some ribs. Ichigo grunted in pain, blood also flying from his mouth, and was then blasted from the building when the light exploded outward, forcing Ichigo to fly into an adjacent building across the street. Naruto got up, holding his side and ready to continue fighting, but the building that they'd fought in took too much punishment from them, causing it to collapse on top of the blonde who had yelped in surprise. Across the street, Ichigo had tossed the debris off his person, equally ready to continue fighting with the intruder, but did not see him anywhere. Seeing the destroyed building that the blonde was in, Ichigo sighed and wrapped his sword up. Who was that guy? He was tougher than any hollow I've fought here. Ichigo wiped his mouth, smearing the blood. Whoever he was, it doesn't matter, I don't have time to be screwing around with a stranger, anyway. Ichigo caught his breath for a few seconds and perked up instantly when an inhuman shriek was heard from far off. With that, Ichigo kicked himself into high gear and left the scene of his short-lived battle with the pirate. A serious expression on his face as he sped through the city, leaping back to the rooftops as he made to find the source of the mysterious roar. Almost done. Just this one and them, Ichigo thought, ready to hunt down the beast. Back at the battle site, Naruto finally burst out from underneath the rubble with his saber raised and the sword stance to continue the battle. Alright. Come at me. Naruto looked to his left and right. He left. We weren't done fighting yet. Naruto grumbled, crossing his arms in a fit and sitting on the ground tilting his head. What was his problem anyway? I may be a pirate, but I haven't done anything. If someone's going to attack me, I at least want a reason for it. Naruto winced in pain and held his side. But he was strong. He kept up with me like it was nothing. He was even faster than Luffy was back a year ago. Naruto thought back to their fight and the fact that the orange-haired swordsman was strong enough to block his attack with minimum effort, and the two of them had to struggle to overpower the other. Not only that, but the guy had managed to catch Naruto off guard during their skirmish when he'd managed to cut his hand when he coated Ace in darkness to absorb the oncoming downward slash. But that Naruto grinned and put a hand on his knee, pumping his other fist in determination. A guy like that has to be on my crew. We may have gotten off on the wrong foot, but once he sees that I'm not a bad guy, he'll be dying to join up. Naruto reasoned. Wind blew in the empty street. Now, where'd he go? The pirate didn't have to wonder for long, because he heard crashes off in the distance. With that, Naruto sped through the streets on a mission to recruit the swordsman that he'd had the honor of fighting against. But Ichigo, the orange-haired swordsman, was hopping from rooftop to rooftop, chasing a bat-like creature flying above him. The teen swordsman had attempted to hit the beast, but it was swift and had evaded each of his attempts. Damn, all this time and I've never had to deal with one that flies. Ichigo groaned, continuing to chase the creature. Hey. The pursuing orange had heard a familiar voice call out to him. Looking over his shoulder while continuing to roof hop, Ichigo saw the blonde pirate on the street waving to him and grinning. You again? Sorry, we got off on the wrong foot. I'm Naruto. Didn't I tell you to leave? Ichigo asked with a cold look. Naruto rubbed the back of his head. Yeah, you did. To tell the truth, this place was so boring, I was probably gonna leave if you hadn't shown up. Lucky, huh? Is that what you'd call it? You're really strong, you know. Naruto hopped up onto the roof next to Ichigo with the swordsman, only giving the blonde a glance as they ran. Sure, I guess. So, I was thinking, since you're so strong, why don't you join my pirate crew with me? We can go on adventures together. Naruto offered with an innocent smile. Ichigo frowned, looked to the blonde, and said, I refuse. Aw, how come? Being a pirate is fun. You get to do whatever you want with a bunch of people watching your back. I don't want to be a pirate, and even if I did, I have something I have to do before I can leave this island. Ichigo looked ahead with determination set in his features. Naruto frowned at his cryptic answer, crossed his arms, closed his eyes, and tilted his head all while still running. What do you have to do? TCH, like I'm telling you? It's none of your business. With his answer, the creature that Ichigo and the unknowing pirate had been chasing let out a shriek as if to remind them that it was present. When Naruto looked up to see what had made the noise, he finally took notice of the odd animal. Whoa, what the heck is that? Naruto asked shocked. You've been chasing me, and you didn't even notice that? Ichigo asked shocked at the oblivious blonde. The cogs in Naruto's head began to turn, looking to the creature then Ichigo and seeing the swordsman's intense gaze on said creature. A hand on his chin and his eyes closed. Naruto worked out the intricacies of Ichigo's words and the oddly empty town. I got it. You're hunting down these things to protect your island, huh? Naruto put his fist in his other hand in realization. If that's all you have to do before you can leave, I'll help you. What? Why? In return for my help, you join my crew. That's a dirty deal. And I already said no. Ichigo's eyes bulged in indignation at the laughing blonde. This'll be a piece of cake. I'll knock that bat down, and then we can hunt the others and leave. Naruto summoned a flame cloud, flew up to meet the creature and earned a crewmember. Hey. Guess this explains why he could block my sword with his bare hands. He's got devil fruit powers, Ichigo mused as the blonde flew to the bat. Hey, bat. I'm knocking you down. Naruto yelled. Would you give away your element of surprise? Ichigo shouted angrily. I want him to know what's coming. Naruto reached the bat and reared his fist back to punch it down. When it heard the blonde's shout, the creature turned to Naruto and shocked him with its appearance. The monster's face was bone white and seemed to be more of a mask than a face with thick teeth for a mouth, a skull-like nose, and a half-circle indented forehead. The odd being gave a shrill shriek, fully turning to confront its prey. Whoa, weird bat, but I'm still gonna take you down. Naruto brought his fist into the bat's chest, pushing the creature back and knocking its balance off. You want to aim for the mask. That's its weak spot. Ichigo informed the blonde. Destroy it and its body will disintegrate. Huh, the mask. Alright. Naruto flew to the bat as it regained its balance, intent on defeating it in one hit, but missed an important detail that Ichigo had shouted. Attack from behind. Never the front, unless you can get it in one hit. Ichigo desperately yelled. Okay, one clean hit. Naruto's saber barreled into the monster's eye, but he winced when his saber met the mask. The crack ran up the forehead of the creature to denote the small amount of damage the impact had on the beast. This thing is tougher than I thought. Naruto said. He couldn't do it, Ichigo commented, though he couldn't blame the blonde for not knowing of the creature's resilience. The monster shook its head to clear the cobwebs when its brain got rattled and opened its maw. Spewing from its mouth came leeches that latched onto Naruto, who recoiled in disgust when they latched onto his arms and chest. You? What the hell kind of bat spits out leeches? Naruto stuck his tongue out, freaked out as he tried to brush the parasites off him only to be met with a great amount of resistance. Leeches? Is that its ability? Will they suck him dry or is it something else? Ichigo continued his pursuit, taking in information from below while watching the battle. While the blonde frantically tried to remove the small parasites from his person, his opponent once again opened its mouth and stuck its oddly forked tongue out toward the pirate. The bat then gave a high-pitched whistle, causing the leeches to vibrate on the pirate, making him wonder what was happening until suddenly the leeches detonated on his body. Bombs. Ichigo sped up when he saw the blonde begin to fall, seemingly knocked out. Hey, you alright? I told you I didn't need help. Ichigo jumped up and caught the blonde. Off. Damn, that caught me by surprise. Must be some kind of mutant or something. Naruto seemed unfazed from the bombs other than a little blood and scuffs on him. You never said the mask was so tough, Naruto pouted. Don't pin this on me. Piercing is only effective when you pack serious power behind it. The best way to destroy the mask is with a cutting attack, so why don't you stand back? And Ichigo made to grab his sword, but Naruto got up instantly. I can cut. Don't worry about me, the captain's gotta be tough. Naruto gave Ichigo a thumbs up. I'm not joining your crew. Ichigo shouted after the blonde had already made back up into the sky. Alright, Batface. I've got you this time. Naruto had his hand out to his side, fingers extended and together, and wind swirling around it. The pirate blonde brought his hand down in a chopping motion. Dark slash. The blonde saber released a sharp dark projectile towards the creature. Being cautious, the monster moved its head away from the blonde's limb as quickly as it could, but the side of its mask had been caught by the tail end of the gust, causing the cracked part of its mask to come off. The monster then fell from the sky and landed in the street due to being swept up the force of the attack and the pain from its face being injured. The blonde followed the felled beast, ready to end the skirmish. Still in one piece. Naruto saw the creature scuttle in place, looking confused and on its last legs. Guess I didn't cut enough. Well, sorry to say, but I've got to take you down. Naruto cracked his knuckles to give the finishing blow. Then the monster turned its head to him. Naruto froze at what he saw. Underneath the mask of this monster was a human face judging from the eye that Naruto could see. It looked to him frantically, afraid of the pirate's approach as it whoever feared its impending doom. So shocked was the blonde, he was taken off guard when the thing had spat its leeches back onto him in a greater volume than before and brought its tongue out to detonate them, fully intending to obliterate the pirate. Before the deed could be done, Ichigo appeared from above the beast and ran his blade through its mass, completely bisecting it. With that, the creature let out an ear-piercing shriek as it slowly began to disappear into dark flecks that floated into the sky, the leeches following suit. I told you. Attack from behind and end it in one strike if you have to attack from the front. Ichigo watched the particles as the corpse completely disappeared with a somber expression. He turned to the blonde who clearly had questions he wanted to ask, but held his tongue. Sai, come on, you need to rest and heal up, and the best place to do that is my house. And when you are rested, you need to leave. Ichigo started to walk, leading the way to his home. Kurosaki Clinic. The walk to Ichigo's home was silent, both teens not knowing how to strike up a conversation after what had happened. They trudged through the empty streets of the ghost town, the unsettling silence only broken by the trash that the wind would occasionally blow past them. Naruto's questions only grew the more and more they passed through, wondering where everyone had been this entire day and why they hadn't come out of hiding. He watched Ichigo's back as they walked, his hand behind his head as he observed the empty town he wouldn't pry since it wasn't any of his business. Ichigo had taken his book out during their trek and had crossed another name from it, but that name eliminated from the large list. Only 3 remained on the very first page of the entire book and they were names that the orange-haired teen dreaded reaching but knew that they were necessary before he could leave the island. Finally stopping in front of Ichigo's home, the duo walked in with Naruto curiously gazing around the abode in slight wonder and Ichigo leaning his sword against the wall by the front door. Make your way to the room on the right. It's where I keep all the medical supplies. Where's all the food? Naruto rummaged in Ichigo's kitchen, looking for sustenance and angering his host. Who do you think you are going through someone else's kitchen? Ichigo growled. I have to heal somehow. Naruto shook his head at the swordsman's blunder. What idiot heals by eating? Go into the patient room and I'll dress your wounds. Ichigo shoved the invader into a room akin to a doctor's office and forced him to sit on a gurney. In a matter of minutes, the swordsman had disinfected the blonde pirate's wounds and wrapped them tightly with gauze with clear familiarity. When he finished the task, Ichigo set his supplies on a small table on wheels and wiped his forehead. Whoa, I'm good as new. Naruto hopped off the gurney immediately and started to swing his arms around and stretch. Are you a Dr. Swordsman? No, I've just seen enough idiots get patched up over the years that I know how to dress wounds, at least. And sit down. Ichigo sat on the doctor's chair, resting his forearms on his knees, and sighed to himself. No doubt you've got questions. I'll tell you what happened on this island, but tomorrow, if you understand the gravity of what I'm going to tell you, you leave. Ichigo brought his head up and saw the blonde spewing blood and bleeding again. I twisted 2much. Naruto fell face-first on the ground. I told you to sit. After addressing the blonde's injuries, the atmosphere once again grew heavy with the weight of the incoming conversation. I'm sure you've noticed that no one has been around the island all day. Ichigo finally started the tough talk. Yeah, everything was completely empty. Naruto rubbed his chin in recollection. Where is everyone? You took out that monster, so you'd think they'd come out of hiding. You've already seen one of them, Ichigo answered, a dark look in his eyes. What? Was the pirate's response, tilting his head. Remember what happened when you broke the bat's mask? Naruto's eyes widened when he thought back, there was a human eye underneath it. You don't mean to tell me? Naruto let the question hang in the air. Ichigo gave Naruto a solemn nod. That creature was once a resident of this island and everyone on this island other than me has met the same fate, Ichigo revealed. How did that happen? A devil fruit. Ichigo shook his head. No, 10 years ago a virus swept through the island in only about 2 days. It didn't take long at all for everyone to become infected and they became those monsters. Hollows? What kind of a virus can do that to a person and hollows? Naruto gripped the gurney tightly as he listened. The virus made to bring something out of people that has always been there, but forcibly, without their consent. The removal of what's inside mangles their bodies and manifests itself into those masks they wear and the loss of their humanity. They become nothing more than beasts, looking to fill the void that has been left by the absence the virus created, Ichigo explained. How come you weren't infected, then? You've been around these things. The word didn't sit right with the blonde, but they couldn't be called human anymore, for 10 years. Wouldn't you have become a hollow too? The reason I'm not affected is the same as the reason you won't be. We have devil fruit powers, Ichigo revealed. You're a devil fruit user? What kind? Naruto asked, curious about the other devil fruits out there. The Ryujin no Mi, spirit fruit, it made me a spirit human. It's almost as if I was dead, in a way, I'm able to use abilities that spirits can. That's where my sword came from. It's a manifestation of my soul, so I'm the only one that can use it. Ichigo looked to the sword. Whoa, cool, but how do our powers protect us from being infected? It's because the thing inside us has already been brought to the surface, only naturally. Ichigo saw the blonde's confusion. I'm sure you know the story of devil fruits. Yeah, they were supposed to be cursed by sea devils, and we lose the ability to swim because the ocean wants to punish us for gaining the abilities or something. The way I see it, the power inside us is malleable, and devil fruits shape it into something that our bodies can handle and use in a natural way. This virus attacks what's inside us before it can be brought out through devil fruits and forms it violently while bringing it out of us, not allowing our bodies the proper time to acclimate to the power and destroying it in the process. It transforms humans into a new shape that can handle the incredible power, destroying everything that made them human and often giving them unique abilities as well, though there are common traits shared by all of them. The masks, great strength and speed, tougher skin to name a few. So that's why you want to stay here? To put everyone to rest. Naruto crossed his arms, knowing the severity of what he was just told. Exactly, and after 10 years, I'm almost finished. Until I've cleansed everyone, I refuse to leave the island. That's why I can't leave with you and be a pirate, Ichigo finished. All the more reason that I stay and help you out. Naruto smiled. Ichigo grit his teeth in frustration. I thought telling you would make you understand. This is something that I have to do alone, and you'll just get in the way. If you're talking about today, I was just caught by surprise. I'll be ready next time, Naruto assured. No, you won't. I told you to rest up and leave tomorrow. That's the deal. Ichigo got up and made to leave. Why are you such a loner? I can help you, and then we can leave together. Naruto shot up, arguing adamantly, because this is none of your business. I don't need or want a pirate's help anyway. I've been doing this for 10 years. Alone. And I've been just fine. Ichigo turned back to the blonde, a frown on his face. No, you haven't. Naruto grabbed the swordsman's collar. No one in the world is alone. You had help to get to where you are now. Your family, your friends, they helped make you who you are today, and you carry them with you as long as you're alive. Your devil fruit helped you survive this long on your own. And now, I'm here to help finish it all and take you away from here. Naruto got into Ichigo's face. This isn't something that you can help me with. No one can, I have to do it myself. Ichigo, in turn, grabbed Naruto's collar and got into Naruto's face just as intensely. Why? Why, just you? Because it's my fault. The house went silent. Ichigo huffed as he came down from the emotional high that the argument had caused. Naruto loosened his grip and let his hand fall back to his side, eyes wide at the revelation that had been revealed to him and unable to find words to say. The virus. It's my fault that it spread around the island as fast as it did. There was no chance for defense against it because I tried to stop it and I lost everything because of it. I have to fix my mistake and let everyone rest. Ichigo looked to the floor, remembering everything. I don't believe you. Ichigo looked up to the blonde, who had a straight face and looked directly into Ichigo's eyes. Whatever happened here wasn't your fault. Someone who'd spend 10 years of their life to save the people from a fate worse than death could never do anything to harm them. Accidental or otherwise, Naruto crossed his arms. He remembered himself once lying in a street, beaten, blaming his own weakness. It was something outside of your control, so it couldn't be your fault. Ichigo was speechless. It was like the blonde had become a different person from the goofball that he'd been all day. He had a commanding air about him, and despite having no real knowledge of the swordsman, Naruto had a look of unshakable faith in Ichigo's character. The blonde didn't seem to even entertain the thought that Ichigo could have caused the outbreak in Karakura town. Ichigo couldn't come up with anything to say in his defense at this point. All he could do was turn away and make his way to his room upstairs. Just go to sleep and get out of here. Ichigo stomped upstairs, passing the pictures on the wall, stopping in front of one that had him and 3 other people on it, 2 girls and an older man. You just don't get it. Ichigo's shoulders slumped, and his normal stern look became softer as he looked at the photo. Naruto watched the swordsman disappear up the steps before huffing in exasperation, hopping back on the gurney for a makeshift bed and placed his arms behind his head. Naruto sighed. He then smirked when he looked down at his bandages. He's a jerk that actually cares about people. He just wants me gone so I don't get hurt. Naruto closed his eyes. I'm not going anywhere until all those things are gone. He'll be mad, but he'll thank me. Eventually, the blonde conked out and was idly snoring in the clinic while Ichigo sat in his room, looking out his window. He gazed at the moon solemnly, knowing that with the coming days he'd have to hunt the final hollows and wondering if he was truly ready. Sighing to himself, Ichigo heard the snores of the blonde coming from downstairs and cracked a small smile. Idiot. Ichigo looked back out the window and thought about the blonde. It was nice to have someone to talk to again after so long even if he got on his nerves. For a pirate, Naruto wasn't so bad and packed a mean punch but he couldn't allow himself to lose focus on his mission and he couldn't have more blood on his hands. Just then, a shadow ran across the dark streets, catching Ichigo's trained eye. He pressed his cheek to the glass to continue to watch the large dark shape move further away from the Kurosaki clinic. The teen knew what this meant and he hopped into action immediately, jumping from his bed and running down the stairs swiftly and grabbing his blade and heading out the door. When the door closed, Naruto cracked one of his eyes open. Karakura streets. Ichigo's heart was beating heavily from running so fast as well as his nervousness. He knew what he was going to do tonight and he hoped he was ready for it. He had to be. It could be any one of them. Attack from behind, destroy the mask. Ichigo chanted in his mind, clicking his teeth. I'll save you, I'll fix this. Ichigo, unbidden, wandered back to 10 years ago, thinking about how he got here. 10 years ago, Karakura Dojo. How? The young Ichigo had been punched in the face during a spar and fell back onto the mat. After the initial shock of the blow, the young orangehead began to bawl his eyes out. Hey, Ichigo's crying again. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed exploring this what if with me. If you did, please consider leaving a like and subscribing for more videos like this. Your support truly makes a difference and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Let me know what you'd like to see next. Until next time, take care and stay tuned for more.